Chapter 881. A deposit of 100 million spirit stones? What the F***ck? She was asking for Enlin's life. What is it? Chang'e was perplexed. Can you make an exception for me? I don't have much cash right now. Enlin rubbed his hands together sheepishly. Chang'e's brows furrowed. How much do you have? I need a lot of money to gather materials. I have 5 million spirit stones in my storage ring, Enlin replied. Chang'e. The woman turned to leave. Don't. Celestial Maiden Chang'e, can you hold off on the money? You know how trustworthy I am. Enlin tried to persuade her to stay. Chang'e's footsteps faltered, and she tilted her head to the side. Trustworthiness and money are two different things. Enlin faltered upon hearing this. You know about the 4-9 Immortal sect, right? I'm the sect leader of such a big sect. Don't you believe in my ability to make money? If you refine a divine pill, I'll definitely be able to raise 100 million spirit stones. Chang'e blinked. 4-9 Immortal sect? The Grandmaster Construction Cultivator has mentioned it to me. Right? So you have to believe me. A smile appeared on Enlin's face. The Grandmaster Construction Cultivator said that your sect is scarily stingy. It's even more powerful than first-rate sects and even more stingy than third-rate sects. Chang'e continued. Enlin's smile froze on his face. F***ck off. It was one thing for the Grandmaster Construction Cultivator to mock him in front of him, but how could he tell anyone else about this? He was going to F***ck her up next time. Enlin had nothing to say. He didn't have any cash, and now that he had brought out his sect, no one would believe him. What else could he do? Just as he was in despair, Chang'e suddenly changed the subject. However, if you can make me feel better, I can consider relaxing the conditions of your deposit. To make you feel better. Enlin was taken aback for a moment, then he instinctively rummaged through his storage ring, thinking of what he could give to Chang'e. Seeing this, Chang'e immediately shook her head and said, I don't need material pleasures. I don't lack money. Enlin was stunned again. She didn't even want the gift. How was he supposed to make her happy? Material things don't work? Could it be that he wanted spiritual happiness? How about this, I'll tell you a few jokes, Enlin said cheerfully. Chang'e's clear and gentle eyes finally brightened a little. Are you telling a joke? Interesting, then tell me a poignant love story. Enlin stood rooted to the ground. Then, am I telling a joke or a poignant love story? I'll tell you a poignant love story that's a little funny. Chang'e pondered for a moment before she said coldly. Enlin sucked in a breath of cold air. What the F***ck? Who could tell him how a F***king poignant love story was funny? If she wanted to tell a joke, then tell a joke. But Chang'e's unreasonable request was F***king raising the difficulty of a joke to hell? Enlin was about to have a mental breakdown. Why was life so difficult? For some reason, a thought flashed through his mind, and he thought of Dongfang Zhuangshi. All right, then I'll tell you a poignant and hilarious love story, Enlin said solemnly. Chang'e nodded and looked at Enlin with a hint of anticipation in her beautiful eyes. Enlin continued. The story took place in a tea shop. A male scholar would come to the tea shop every morning to drink tea. Thus, the young woman who was responsible for brewing tea recognized the scholar. Time passed by peacefully and elegantly. Day after day, the two of them became familiar with each other. One morning, is there something on your mind? The scholar suddenly asked as he sipped his tea. The young woman, are you familiar with young Master Tang? The scholar, family friends. The young woman, then you can come with him next time. The scholar's heart convulsed, and his tea suddenly became tasteless. The scholar, he doesn't like to drink tea. The young woman, that's all right. I can slowly learn what he likes. The scholar, he likes me. Ha ha ha. What do you think? Isn't it poignant and hilarious? Enlin laughed heartily. Chang'e shuddered, and an indescribable blush appeared on her face. Her eyes rippled, and her voice became a little softer. As expected, true love is between the same sex. This is a good joke. You pass. Ha ha ha. And Lin faltered again, and a look of confusion appeared on his face. It seemed like Chang Yi's point of view was different from his? In any case, this was a good result because Chang Yi had already agreed. Thank you, Celestial Maiden Chang Yi. Thank you very much. And Lin was extremely excited. A faint smile appeared on Celestial Maiden Chang Yi's face. If everything goes smoothly, the Rainbow Divine Tao pill will be completed in a year or two. Are you sure you can produce enough spirit stones? And Lin nodded with a solemn expression. Don't worry, I'll definitely be able to produce enough spirit stones. Even if I can't, I'll sell my weapons to raise enough spirit stones for you. He was very confident in his wealth. With so many treasures in his storage ring, selling them for 100 million spirit stones wouldn't be an issue at all. Chang Yi nodded. Alright, I'll start preparing to refine the Rainbow Divine Tao pill right away. Your 5 million spirit stones will be the insurance money. If you go back on your word or suddenly die, this money will be my compensation. And Lin's lips twitched slightly. Just pay the insurance money, can't you just say something so unlucky? However, even though he was cursing in his heart, he still wore a smile on his face as he obediently handed over the 5 million spirit stones in his storage ring to Chang Yi. All right, now please call him penniless. And Lin expressed his gratitude to Chang Yi again. This was a huge favor that required a lot of trust in order to make. After all, this was a very risky endeavor. If he were to find other top-rate pill refinement masters and ask them to refine a divine pill with 5 million spirit stones as a down payment, they would definitely slap him and tell him to piss off. Even though Chang Yi had also thrown a slap at him, she still smiled and said, I'll help you. Look at how nice this celestial maiden was. How kind and gentle. And Lin, work hard to earn money, I'll be going now. Chang Yi bade farewell. Take care, Celestial Maiden Chang Yi. And Lin bade farewell to Celestial Maiden Chang Yi and began to return to Xiuxian United University. Now, he was finally going to put his money-making plan on the agenda. This was a big plan, so he had to plan it well. Night fell. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. And Lin leaned against the windowsill and murmured to himself, Xiao Hong, how do you think we can earn big money? Xiao Hong yawned and replied in her sweet voice, The world is beautiful as long as there's sunlight. What's the point of always thinking about earning money? I don't need money, so of course I don't know how to earn money. And Lin, all right, he shouldn't have asked this Buddha-like cultivator. Xiao Hong was a freak who ate, drank, and had fun every day. She would occasionally bask in the sun, and when fate was right, her cultivation base would automatically rise to a higher level. She was completely different from a fake cultivator like him. Shui Zhantian was extremely excited upon hearing this. Master, please crush this sky with me. There will naturally be countless treasures waiting for us. And Lin rolled his eyes. This retard could be ignored. Who should he look for? His eyes lit up. Look for Xiaolan. Chapter 882. Candlelight flickered within the dorm. And Lin's night raid. Tui. It was a night raid on Su Xiaolan's dorm. Su Xiaolan wasn't surprised to see that it was Lin, and she welcomed him ingraciously. What is it? You look like you've encountered a problem? Su Xiaolan asked with a faint smile. Before Lin had a chance to say anything, Su Xiaolan had already figured out what was going on. As expected of Su Xiaolan, Lin nodded. I have indeed encountered a problem. I'm in need of spirit stones recently, and I'm looking for a quick way to earn money. Su Xiaolan's brows perked up slightly. You're in need of spirit stones? How many do you need? If you're really short on spirit stones, I can lend you some. And Lin waved his hands. No, I'm in need of a lot of spirit stones. It's better for me to earn them myself. How many spirit stones do you need to earn? Su Xiaolan pursed her lips. About 100 million spirit stones a year, Enlin replied. Su Xiaolan. Everyone suddenly fell silent. Su Xiaolan took a deep breath. I suggest you go to sleep. Enlin blinked with confusion. Why? Su Xiaolan chuckled. Anything can happen in a dream. Enlin. All right, this goal of earning 100 million spirit stones a year was an impossible mission in Su Xiaolan's eyes, and it was most likely the same in everyone else's eyes. Enlin walked out of the dorm with a dejected expression. He had to fulfill his promise even if it cost him his life. Chang'e should already be preparing the ingredients for the divine pill. If she successfully refined the divine pill, but Enlin couldn't pay the spirit stones, would he be hung on the moon and whipped by the laurel tree? The more Enlin thought about it, the more pressure he felt. He recalled the horror of being dominated by the Golden Realm essence crystals. The ancient Tai Chu realm was a place where both danger and riches coexisted. Even though it would be difficult to obtain 100 million spirit stones, there was still hope. However, what about the campus of the United University of Cultivation? In such a warm and harmonious place, how could they make money if they couldn't even kill their enemies and steal their treasures? Did he just rely on selling steamed buns? How worrying! He opened the door and returned to the attic. Giant Enlin. A beautiful and delicate figure flew in front of Enlin. Her emerald green eyes were filled with a moving color. I have a piece of good news. Enlin glanced at Tina with a listless expression. What news? I'm currently struggling for money. If it's not about spirit stones, please don't bother me. What a coincidence. The good news is about spirit stones. Giant Enlin is so powerful. Did you say that on purpose? Tina covered her mouth with a hand in surprise. Enlin was completely awake. He held the elf with both hands and his eyes lit up with excitement. What's the good news? A smug expression appeared on Tina's face. The first spirit stone mine has been born in my divine mirror world. Boom. This piece of news was like a bolt of divine lightning striking Enlin's head, making him tremble with ecstasy. Mine? My God. We actually have a spirit stone mine. Enlin's head was spinning from the immense joy he was experiencing. This was like a mortal suddenly discovering a gold mine in their home. How could they not be excited? Yes, as the world continues to improve and develop, there is a spirit stone mine near the deity ground that we created. Tina seemed very happy. That's right. Enlin could understand this. The holy ground was formed from the energy of the sky, the power of the veins of the earth, and the essence of the stars. It was actually quite logical that the first spirit stone mine of the divine mirror world would be born near the holy ground. How big is that mine? What about the purity? How much can we excavate? Enlin asked excitedly. This was the question that he was most concerned about. Tina thought to herself for a moment before replying. There are currently around 60 million spirit stones in reserve, all of which are of moderate purity, so we can already mine them. However, in order to ensure the sustainability of the mine, we can only mine 10 million spirit stones at most. Enlin rubbed his face against Tina's with excitement. Little Na, you're the best. You're my lucky star. Hee hee. Tina patted Enlin's face with her tiny hands. She also began to giggle at Enlin's elated expression. The spiritual aura of heaven and earth converged to give birth to spirit stones. As long as a spirit stone mine was excavated in moderation, it would be able to produce an inexhaustible supply of spirit stones. This was also why the spirit stone mines on the Tai Chu continent were so valuable. However, if they were excavated excessively, then the mine would deteriorate and eventually die. Hence, the rate of excavation had to be carefully controlled. To living beings on the Tai Chu continent, this was very difficult to control. It was not uncommon for spirit stone mines to gradually deteriorate and disappear, and the owners of these mines would naturally wail in despair. However, Tina was different. She was the god of creation, and she was the most knowledgeable person in the entire world about how to excavate spirit stones. And Lin and Tina arrived in the divine mirror world. They flew above the spirit stone mine to find that it was situated on a mountain ridge and shrouded in white vital energy mist. The mountain ridge was like the back of a coiling dragon, while the spirit stone mine was like the spine of the dragon. Both of them exuded a translucent green light, and the energy imbued within them was extremely rich. Spirit stone mines are formed by heaven and earth, but they are also limited by heaven and earth. Once they take form, it will be very difficult for them to continue to gather spiritual aura and expand their reserve. However, it will be a lot easier for them to reconstruct the missing spirit stones, Tina explained. And Lin stroked his chin. It feels like a living being that can use the power of heaven and earth to recover from its injuries, but it will die if it's too severely injured? Wow, Giant and Lin, that's a very vivid description, Tina praised with a dainty smile. Then, how long will it take for it to recover? And Lin asked. A golden light flashed through Tina's eyes, and she instantly completed her calculations. Taking into account the acceleration of time, it will take about 3 years to completely recover in real time, Tina replied in a faint voice. And Lin heaved a faint sigh upon hearing this. It looked like this spirit stone mine alone wasn't going to be enough to achieve his goal. However, being able to collect 10 million spirit stones had already given him a lot of hope and confidence. Hopefully, 1 or 2 more spirit stone mines would appear in the divine mirror world within a year. Are we going to send people to excavate the spirit stone mine now? Lin asked. Why should we? Tina blinked her emerald eyes. I can take care of it by myself. By yourself? Lin faltered slightly upon hearing this. At this moment, Tina waved a hand toward the spirit stone mine down below. Rumble streaks of green light erupted from the spirit stone mine before converging in front of Tina like a meteor shower. There were so many of them that Lin felt like he was going to be blinded. Each time Tina extracted the spirit stone from the spirit stone mine, she would do so according to a specific ratio and location in order to minimize damage to the spirit stone mine and maximize its regenerative abilities. Her precise control was unparalleled. She was like a godly doctor who knew every single part of the spirit stone mine. And Lin suddenly thought of a certain piece of news in the mortal world. A certain female doctor stabbed her boyfriend several dozen times in succession, but the hospital only pronounced it as a minor injury. However, Tina had stabbed the spirit stone mine 10 million times, and the world had judged her to be a terrifying being with minor injuries. Giant and Lin, take it! Tina tossed the spirit stones toward Lin in an extremely generous manner. Lin was almost moved to tears, and he carefully stowed away the 10 million spirit stones before turning to the fairy before him with gratitude in his eyes. Goddess Tina was the perfect person to latch onto. As long as he could hook up with a wealthy woman in the cultivation world, he would be able to instantly reach the pinnacle of his life. This was Lin's path to riches. Chapter 883. Lin left the divine mirror world with a content expression after enjoying the feeling of being Tina's sugar daddy. Tina also had another opportunity to dote on Lin, and a joyful smile appeared on her face. Giant Lin, I'll be sure to inform you as soon as new spirit stone mines appear in the divine mirror world. Tina circled around Lin with a crisp and gentle voice. Little Na is the best. I'll cook a frying pan feast for you tomorrow. Lin praised with a smile. Yay! Giant Lin is the best. Tina latched onto Lin's finger excitedly. The food you make with your frying pan is the best food in the world. Of course. Lin raised his head with a smug expression. All of a sudden, he faltered slightly. Wait, something doesn't seem right. Lin's expression darkened. What do you mean by my frying pan is the best food? The food I make with my frying pan is clearly the best food. Is there a difference? Tina blinked with confusion in her eyes. There is a difference. Lin replied with a serious expression, The former makes your frying pan very bad *ss, while the latter makes your giant unlin very bad *ss. Oh. Tina nodded. Otherwise, the food you make wouldn't even be as good as the food made by the aunties in the school cafeteria. The food giant Unlin makes with his frying pan is the best food in the world. Little Na loves it the most. Tina lied with a dainty smile. Unlin was extremely satisfied. The best food in the world, a thought suddenly occurred to him. If he sold 100 steamers of stuffed buns ignored by Dubai for 1,000 spirit stones each, he would be able to make 100,000 spirit stones a day. However, this was clearly not a sustainable business as the students really didn't have that much money. After all, the frying pan was the #1 luxury item in the school. Many of them came to the frying pan with the intention of trying it out, only to feel a little distressed afterward. There were almost no students who could afford to buy stuffed buns every day. Why don't we sell buns every other day? Hunger marketing. Then, when I'm free, I'll make some special dishes and sell them? A contemplative expression appeared on Unlin's face. It seemed a little difficult to make a dish from the frying pan worth more than 100,000 spirit stones. That night, the frying pan feast was held again. Unlin even called Xiaolan over to give him some advice. Su Xiaolan thought for a moment, then said, "The reason why the dishes of the god of cooking of the celestial court are so priceless is not only because of the superb taste, but also because of the pure energy contained in the dishes, which can heal injuries, increase cultivation, and enlighten people." "Are you saying that we should start from the inner aspect?" Unlin asked. Su Xiaolan nodded. "That's right. Do you remember the cola chicken you made for me? When the pot was opened, the phenomenon of a rising phoenix appeared. When cooking with the frying pan, the special effects are automatically added, which is a much better selling point than adding artificial special effects. If we add some medicinal properties, then the dishes we make can even surpass the god of cooking." Her words were like a bucket of wisdom pouring into Unlin's head, and his entire body was filled with excitement. "All right, I'll give it a try tomorrow." After all, Unlin had a foundation in both culinary and pill refinement. "You're saying that my cooking skills are only at the level of the school cafeteria aunties? Come on. Every cafeteria aunties had different cooking skills. Not all cafeteria aunties would cook randomly, and when the time was right, the dishes would naturally be ready to eat. This was the Celestial Court Xiaoxian United University, the #1 university in the Kingdom of the 9 States. How could the cooking skills of the aunties who could cook for all the prodigies here be bad? One had to realize that even pampered people like Xianyuan Qing, Su Qianyun, and Su Xiaolan found the food here to be quite good. It was already very bad *ss that Unlin's cooking skills were comparable to the cafeteria aunties. Of course, there was still a gap between his cooking skills and the god of cooking of the celestial court. But that didn't matter. He had the frying pan as a cheat. Flavor enhancements and special effects were no joke. These effects would play a decisive role in the food. The food that immortals ate was no longer to fill their stomach. It was for enjoyment. Not only did Unlin's dishes have to be enjoyable to the taste buds, but they also had to be enjoyable to the senses of smell, sight, hearing, and touch. Even his consciousness had to be pleasurable. This was the #1 dish in the world that he was pursuing. The next day, after class, Unlin stood in the kitchen and looked at the ingredients in front of him. These were all high-grade ingredients that had been carefully selected from his storage ring. All of them exuded bursts of unique energy fluctuations, and they were all excellent ingredients for pill refinement. As for the condiments, there were all kinds of condiments from all the major tribes and regions. There were even spices from the divine mirror world. He looked toward his sea of vital energy at the white vermilion bird, who was circling in the air in boredom. Little vermilion bird, please help me." The vermilion bird glanced up into the air. "Pill refinement again? No, learn how to cook from me. You'll be responsible for cooking." Vermilion bird. I'm a mighty vermilion bird and I'm going to be a chef? What a joke. Unlin continued, you can play with the 7 flames. Chirp. The vermilion bird flew toward Unlin's consciousness excitedly. The projection of a white vermilion bird flashed past Unlin's eyes, and he spread his hands open at the same time. Flames of all different colors appeared in the air, creating a dazzling sight to behold. How to use flames was also an important part of cooking. Right now, Unlin was invincible when it came to using flames. Thump, 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 crack, 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 boom, boom, boom. Within the kitchen, an earth-shattering battle erupted. Within the core area of the celestial court, on a pavilion within a secluded paradise, a woman in a plain Taoist robe stared blankly at the peach blossom forest in the distance as the peach blossoms blossomed. White clouds swept across the sky, and an immortal in a flowing white robe suddenly flew toward her atop a black brick. It was quite a beautiful scene, but it was completely ruined by the huge brick. However, for some reason, an unconcealable smile appeared on the woman's face as she rose to her feet to welcome him. Unlin leaped into the room through the window. Piggy bank, are you getting impatient? He asked with a buoyant grin. Lin Junjun glared at Unlin. If you call me piggy bank again, you can leave right now. All right, Celestial Maiden Tian Yu, are you mentally prepared? Unlin placed a sealed dish onto the table. Lin Junjun crossed her arms in front of her chest and harumphed. What do I need to mentally prepare myself for? You're talking about the #1 dish in the Kingdom of the 9 States that can surpass the chef god. Do you think I'll believe anything you say? Unlin wasn't enraged by her words. Instead, he rubbed his hands together nervously. He reached for the lid of the dish. Now let's speak with facts. Chapter 884. Unlin lifted the lid of the dish on the table. A golden light radiated outward like a ray of light. Ah, what a piercing light! Lin Junjun shielded her eyes with an expression of shock on her face. However, what was even more astonishing was yet to come. After the lid was completely lifted, a phenomenon occurred. A full moon suddenly appeared in the sky from which the energy of True Yin surged. There seemed to be a Guang Han ballad drifting into the air, like the sounds of nature. Woof! A white flying dog charged toward the full moon and swallowed it in one mouthful at a time. Then, as if it had attained enlightenment, it sat down with its legs crossed, closed its eyes, and puffed out its chest. Then, it raised a finger toward the sky and transformed into a feather. Finally, the white light of ascension descended from the sky and landed on the dish, upon which it shimmered. Lin Junjun and Unlin were both dumbstruck by what they saw. A rich aroma began to waft through the air. The fragrant and tender dog meat was at the very center of the plate, and at the bottom was a golden fried egg that was as shiny as a full moon. All sorts of side dishes decorated the dish, creating a scene reminiscent of a moon palace. Unlin swallowed as an urge to eat welled up in his heart. F***ck. How could he let someone else eat such an exquisite dish? He might as well take it home and eat it himself. In the next instant, Unlin's body shuddered. What an amazing dish! It even had the ability to confuse one's mind. Unlin, is this really for me? Lin Junjun's eyes glazed over as she reached for the dish with both hands, forgetting to pick up her chopsticks as she tried to grab the dish with her bare hands. No one could resist her charm. Slap! Unlin slapped Lin Junjun's slender hand. Pick up your chopsticks. Lin Junjun came to her senses and blushed as she eagerly picked up her chopsticks. Unlin, what's the name of this dish? Heavenly dog engulfs the moon. How domineering! Lin Junjun picked up a slice of meat that glowed with moonlight and opened her mouth to take a small bite. The moaning of a woman instantly erupted from within the room. Ah, this feeling! How could there be such a delicious dish in this world? I can't take it anymore. Give it to me. I want to. Don't come, they're all mine. The woman moaned again and again, her voice reverberating in the pavilion. Outside the pavilion, the celestial Larch drew a sharp intake of breath as his body began to tremble uncontrollably upon hearing the commotion going on inside the pavilion. Soon, the heavenly dog engulfing the moon on the plate was completely devoured by the two hungry dogs, Unlin and Lin Junjun. The two of them panted heavily as they looked at each other. A bright blush appeared on Lin Junjun's face as she burst into laughter. "Ha ha, there's an egg yolk on your nose." She pointed at Unlin's nose and laughed. Unlin chuckled. "What are you laughing at? You still have vegetable leaves in your teeth." Lin Junjun immediately pulled out a small mirror and bared her teeth, only to find that there was nothing wrong with them. Where? In that instant, Unlin had already eaten the egg yolk and washed his face. "There's none left now." Lin Junjun faltered slightly before erupting in rage. "Fine. You lied to me again." She extended a hand as if she was going to hit him. Unlin took a couple of steps back and raised his hands in surrender. "Calm down, I didn't lie to you when I said my dishes were super delicious, did I?" Lin Junjun humphed lightly. I won't deny that. This heavenly dog engulfing the moon is indeed the most delicious dish I've ever had. It's flawless in all aspects, and the power of the moon is also nourishing my body, relaxing my muscles and activating my meridians, thereby increasing my cultivation base." She paused momentarily before continuing. "All right, I'll help you advertise your dish among the immortals of the celestial court and guarantee its quality." Unlin was extremely excited. "Then I'll have to trouble you, celestial maiden Tianyu. By the way, how much do you charge for each dish?" Tianyu asked. Unlin paused momentarily before replying. 100,000 spirit stones. "Tianyu, you really dare to charge such a high price?" A faint smile appeared on Unlin's face. "Only once a day, and the price will increase in the future." "All right, I'll reserve 2 meals in advance. The dishes for tomorrow and the day after will all be mine." Lin Junjun's eyes lit up as she made a prompt decision. Unlin. Soon, a piece of news began to circulate through the celestial court. The new chef god of the celestial court had been born. His cooking skills were earth-shattering, and the celestial Larch fell silent while Tianyu wept after eating his dishes. He was a top-notch chef recommended by the celestial Larch pavilion of the celestial court. Apparently, this chef only cooked 1 dish a day, and he charged a whopping 100,000 spirit stones. This price was already comparable to the prices of the exquisite dishes cooked by the old chef god of the celestial court, Hu Jiahao. This piece of news quickly created a massive stir in the celestial court. What a joke! An unknown chef was charging a sky-high price for his first dish? Wasn't that just trying to fool the immortals? What idiot would fall for that? However, what was even more astonishing was that the cooking skills of this new chef god were soon officially acknowledged by the celestial Larch. This was incredible! They could ignore rumors, but what if it was personally acknowledged by the celestial Larch? Just like the Changsha stinky tofu that Chairman Mao personally wrote, who wouldn't want to try it? The celestial Larch wouldn't lie to them, right? Thus, countless foodie immortals turned their scorching gazes toward the new chef. 100,000 spirit stones was a little expensive, but if a group of 10 went to eat the same dish, then it would only cost 10,000 spirit stones each, and they would be able to taste the most delicious dish in the world. There were still immortals who were brave enough to try something like this. One day, after the executive meeting of the celestial court concluded, the topic of conversation revolved around the chef god again. "Hey, I heard that the chef god is Enlin from the United University of Cultivation." "My god, that Enlin who pummeled Emperor Ziwei? Shoo! Do you want to die for saying something like that in the celestial court?" I'm going to try his cooking just based on his resume. Apparently, he's also the creator of the steamed buns ignored by Dubai. Oh, I know that. It's one of the specialties of the celestial court. Looks like he really does have some skills. Let's go and have a taste as well. Let's go together. On a certain food street in the celestial court, Lin had rented a shop. The decorations inside were simple and plain, and the shop was quite inconspicuous. The most eye-catching thing was probably the signboard. This was the Celestial Court Chef God Lin's gourmet shop. Aside from him, there was only one person in the Celestial Court who dared to hang the title of Chef God. This title was frightening. Coupled with the shop's simple and shabby decorations, it created a contrast of cuteness. Hence, all of the immortals passing by this place would take a few more glances at it before coming to the conclusion that this was a fake Chef God. However, as the news spread, a peculiar change began to take place. Many of the immortals looked at this little shop in a different light. Some were curious, some were confused, and some were longing. Lin sat there obediently, yawning in boredom. Su Xiaolan had already applied for a leave of absence for him. Her reason was very sincere. Lin had no interest in cultivation, so he learned how to cook and opened a restaurant. Their homeroom teacher, Flying Sword God, almost suffered an internal injury when he saw this excuse. If you're asking for a leave of absence, then just ask for a leave of absence. Can't you show some respect for the homeroom teacher? However, what Flying Sword God didn't expect was that Su Xiaolan's explanation was actually true. Just as the sun was about to set, 8 figures suddenly appeared in the Celestial Court Chef God Lin's gourmet shop. Lin's eyes lit up. The prey he had been waiting for was finally here. Chapter 885. This guy couldn't stop flexing. Long time no see, Lin. The man's smile was like a spring breeze. But since he was already here, no matter how much he bragged, he would know the truth after tasting Dubai's food. Tui. Imperial Uncle Chow, what kind of theory is that? Have you been led astray by Lin's sun and moon? 10,000 chicken per day is not bad. I like to eat chicken. How could it taste good? I feel like he cooks faster than me, Lan Saiha said with a pout. The 8 immortals all drew a sharp intake of breath. Lin clasped his hands behind his back and raised his head. There was a profound look in his eyes, and his aura was one and the same. I hold the sun, the moon, and the stars in my hand. There is no one like me in this world. They were just here for a meal, and they were taking advantage of him? Lin's dishes and Hu Jiahao's exquisite dishes are priced at roughly the same price. Even if the dishes come out super fast, it would still take a few hours to cook, right? They still had enough money to afford a tasting meal. With the Celestial Thearcha's guarantee, they naturally wouldn't lose anything. Why was this guy so confident? The most delicious dishes of his life? What heavenly dog engulfs the moon, heavenly dog engulfs the sun, Chang'e runs to the moon, Ho-E shoots the sun, Qua-Fu pursues the sun so fast. Zhang Guolao's eyes widened. The hand that was stroking his snow-white beard almost pulled it off. Celestial maiden, he had no choice but to choose her own dishes. In the end, she chose a rather strange dish. It was called Zodiac Auspicious Day. Iron Crutchley looked at it. There were over 100 dishes on it, and the names were quite intimidating. Then, the 8 immortals saw a scene that they would never forget. An hour later, Lin came out. The 8 immortals stood outside the door and hesitated momentarily before walking in. The 8 immortals shuddered upon hearing this, and they drew a sharp intake of breath. Celestial maiden, he gasped, F***CK. Is there anyone else who can control the situation? There were 7 men and 1 woman, and the man at the front was handsome and elegant. The 8 immortals shuddered again. The 8 immortals began to argue fiercely. F***CK. You can't stop acting tough, right? Han Zhongli, Zhang Guolao, Han Xiangzi, Tai Guili, Lu Dongbin, He Xingu, Lan Saiha, and Chao Guizhou. Lin had heard a lot about these 8 immortals. F***CK. I've already offered a sky-high price of 100,000 spirit stones per dish, and you still want to raise the price? This won't do, this won't do. I can tell that this dish is vegetarian. Then you've come at the right time. Lin chuckled and said, I'm not bragging, but you've probably never tasted such delicious food in your lives. Moreover, this is the lowest price now. After a period of time, the price will definitely rise, so you've taken advantage of it. Asterisk hiss. Asterisk eldergua. How long do you think it will take for Enlin to make this dish? Han Xiangzi pulled a chair and sat down casually. Even the corner of Lu Dongbin's mouth twitched. Haha. This name does sound like a top-notch cuisine. He Xiangu was amused. Her graceful figure swayed as she giggled. Lu Dongbin's face darkened. Why are these dishes all about the sun and the moon? Mr. Enlin's cooking speed is surprisingly fast, Celestial Maiden, he exclaimed in surprise. Then, he silently praised himself for being quick-witted. That's right, the immortals here were the 8 immortals who were extremely famous in the celestial court. Zhang Guolao shook his head. It's hard to say, but the more exquisite the dish, the more energy it takes. It's said that Chef God Hu Jiahao takes half a day to cook a top-notch dish if it's fast, and up to half a month if it's slow. He was very familiar with this process. Perhaps this was how he had done it in the past. Enlin smiled. The dish is ready. Lu Dongbin. That's right, it was a dish that she didn't understand, but it sounded awesome. She wanted to see what Enlin, who was known as the Divine Chef, could come up with such a strange dish name. Enlin also stood up and bowed. Senior Lu Dongbin, long time no see. In the end, He Xiangu became the one who made the decision. Here, Senior, this is the menu. You can choose for yourselves. Enlin handed a large golden menu to Iron Crutchley. The 8 immortals looked at it. At first, they were curious, but gradually, they felt that something was not right, and their expressions became strange. The 8 immortals. As it turned out, it wasn't a good thing for the 8 immortals to have strong personalities. It was too difficult for them to reach a consensus on certain matters. In the end, they still had to draw straws, and the one who drew the decision would be the one who made the decision. She turned to Enlin with a smile. Enlin, do you have any good suggestions? For example, which dish is the signature dish? Hee, that's a good name. Celestial Maiden, he faltered momentarily before praising again. Enlin smiled. All of my dishes have reached the pinnacle of perfection and are unique in this world. It doesn't matter if it's a signature dish or not, as long as you eat it all the way to the climax. Zhang Guolao asked in a serious manner, Mr. Enlin, what is the special meaning behind your naming method? In other words, why did you have to go against the sun and the moon? Enlin's eyes lit up again. Familiar faces. He then turned to the other 7 immortals and bowed again. Junior Enlin pays his respects to the seniors of the 8 immortals. I've heard a lot about you. Regardless of whether it was in the stories of the mortal world or in the textbooks of the United University of Cultivation, the 8 of them were all very interesting immortals. They were then greeted by the sight of Enlin making his way into the kitchen with an indifferent expression. Immediately thereafter, the sounds of cooking erupted from within. Enlin had saved Celestial Maiden, He's life in the ancient Tai Chu realm, so Celestial Maiden, he was very friendly toward him. Celestial Maiden, he was worried for nothing. Enlin wasn't being polite at all. He was not treating them as outsiders at all. Lu Dongbin nodded in agreement. That explains why Mr. Enlin can only cook 1 meal a day. After all, it takes a lot of energy and time, and even 2 meals won't be enough. Enlin sighed with emotion. He hadn't saved this Celestial Maiden for nothing. Then, Mr. Enlin, what dishes can you make? The number 1 foodie among the 8 immortals, Iron Crutchley, couldn't help but ask. Enlin smiled. You'll know if it's delicious after you try it yourself. He slowly lifted the lid as he spoke. That won't do, Han Zhongli. Let's do it before the flowers and under the moonlight. I like flowers, Lan Saiha, who loved flowers, protested. Enlin, there's no need to be so polite. Celestial Maiden, he made her way over to Enlin with a vibrant smile on her face. I heard that the Celestial Dharch bestowed upon you as the 2nd chef god of the Celestial Court. We're very close, so of course I have to come and try your cooking. I'll take this dish. Solar and lunar eclipse. Both the sun and the moon are present, so it should be quite delicious. The other 8 immortals repressed their curses and began to look through the menu to decide which dish to order. Chapter 886. The instant the lid was lifted, a golden light illuminated the entire restaurant. What a piercing light! Lon Saiha exclaimed as he narrowed his eyes. That's the precious light of food. Zhang Guolao's eyes lit up. Immediately afterward, countless beautiful scenes began to appear before everyone's eyes, all of which were delightful scenes. Not only was it visually impactful, but it was also impactful to the ears. A bright female voice began to sound. The song was, "Today is a good day. Today is a good day, everything I want can come true. Tomorrow is a good day, we open our doors to welcome the spring breeze." The singing is very pleasing to the ear, and it matches the name of the dish very well. Wonderful, wonderful! Han Xiangzi was completely entranced by the song. What was an auspicious day! The Azure Dragon, Tiande, Yu Tang, Si Ming, Ming Tang, and Jin Kuei were known as the 6 ecliptic gods. When the 6 ecliptic gods were on duty, it was an auspicious day. After the phenomena disappeared, all 8 immortals turned to look at the dishes on the plates. The Azure Dragon coiled around the periphery, like jade and lightning. The Tiande and Jin Kuei were objects that resembled golden coins, exuding a mesmerizing glow. The Ximing was the Phoenix Chariot Star, a chicken that had transformed into a phoenix. Its wings were crispy, and an extremely alluring charred aroma wafted through the air. The Ming Tang and Yu Tang were fragrant vegetables that resembled the feathers of a phoenix. All 8 immortals felt their bodies and souls throbbing at the sight of this. A thought suddenly appeared in their minds. They really wanted to eat. All 8 of them began to move their chopsticks at the same time. In the beginning, they were a bit more reserved. After all, they had lived for so long and had seen all kinds of storms. However, when the dishes entered their mouth, everything changed. All 8 immortals shuddered at the same time. Ah, this taste! My God! Gasp! Vital energy suddenly surged as the chopsticks transformed into a series of afterimages. Get out of my way! This chicken wing is mine! Lu Dongbin screamed as his chopsticks were like swords, vanquishing all the chopsticks around him. No! I just want those smart vegetables. Why did you hit me? Lon Saiha's chopsticks were like orchids, using softness to overcome hardness, constantly moving the chopsticks around him. Celestial maiden, he let out a soft snort, and the phantom image of a lotus shrouded a piece of chicken wing. She said in a low voice, "The chicken wing is so delicious, but Lu Dongbin, you actually want to keep it for yourself. Have you asked me?" Everyone, calm down, calm down. Respect your elders, understand? I'll go first. Tai Guili's chopsticks were imbued with the power of the Tao of metal, making them extremely ferocious. They actually broke through Lon Saiha's soft stance and went for the fresh meat that looked like an azure dragon. Bah! Why don't you say that you love the young? Lon Saiha shouted, and the chopsticks once again fought with Zhang Guolao. You're already so old. Why are you still pretending to be young? Elder Zhang was furious. Hee, among the 8 immortals, I'm the youngest. If I'm not young, then what am I? Lon Saiha retorted reasonably, and his attacks with the chopsticks became more and more skillful. Chao Guojiu was even more powerful. On the surface, he appeared to be attacking with the chopsticks, but in reality, he was using a soul technique to create a wisp of his consciousness, which he used to sneak toward the dish that looked like an ingot. This move was to build a plank road in the open while secretly crossing Chen Song. It was truly ingenious to use. Unfortunately, this move was seen through by Han Zhongli, who possessed the eye of the sun god. He casually killed the wisp of his consciousness with a wave of flames. Hee, old Chow, you're not a good person. You're still thinking of stealing? A man should fight head-on. Han Xiangzi laughed heartily. He waved a hand, and over 100 nimble little people materialized in the air. they pounced toward the auspicious sun, intending to take it all. Holy F***ck, old Han, you're even more F***king dishonest. Han Zhongli was given a fright, and he immediately pulled out a fan before waving it violently. Flames exploded. Boom. The flames exploded like a ball. The Celestial Court Chef God and Lin's Gourmet Restaurant exploded. Fortunately, Lu Dongbin and Celestial Maiden, he protected the auspicious sun at the critical moment. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Holy F***ck. Han Zhongli, are you F***king crazy? Han Xiangzi cursed. You were the one who went crazy first. How dare you try to take it all? Han Zhongli chortled with glee. Thus, the two of them began to bicker again. No, it should be said that the 8 immortals began to bicker over the auspicious sun again. Lin clasped a hand over his chest as he stared at the charred remains of the shop. F***ck. The 8 immortals had been so sage-like just a moment ago. Why did their image crumble so suddenly? Was it really okay to fight on the streets? Now, it looked like his decision to randomly pick a simple and unadorned restaurant was a F***king wise one. No matter how good the restaurant was, it would explode in less than a day. 8 immortals crossing the sea. Tui. Were the 8 immortals passing by the restaurant to steal food? After a fierce battle on the auspicious sun, the 8 immortals were finally exhausted and panting heavily as they lay on the ground. The auspicious sun had been swept clean by them. Huff huff huff. I never thought that we would fight over a dish, Han Zhongli said slowly as he panted heavily. Lin's cooking skills are truly superb. Celestial Maiden, he licked her lips with her dainty pink tongue, still wishing for more. Lu Dongbin nodded. I give Lin full marks for this dish. Haha, seniors, you're too kind. If you like it, you can come again tomorrow, Lin said with a smile. We have to go on a mission to the East Sea tomorrow. Can't we do it today? We can increase the price and cook more. Zhang Guilao couldn't help but suggest. Lin shook his head with disappointment. I can't, senior. Due to some special reasons, I can only cook 1 meal a day. The 8 immortals sighed in disappointment when they heard this. Don't worry, Lin will definitely help you advertise your restaurant when we get back. The quality of your dishes is not inferior to Chef God Hu Jiahao's. Lan Saiha said excitedly. The other 7 immortals all chimed in and declared that they would help Lin advertise his restaurant. Lin was ecstatic and gave them another steamer of stuffed buns, ignored by Dabai. One had to realize that the 8 immortals had a very wide network in the Celestial Court. If they were to advertise personally, the effect would definitely be extraordinary. Just like that, the 8 immortals returned. As part of the food tasting group, they gave their evaluation of Lin's cooking. That was, Lin truly deserved the title of Chef God. This news caused another stir in the Celestial Court. The Celestial Thearcha's advertising was like official advertising. Although it was reliable, it wasn't down to earth. However, the 8 immortals' advertising was like the most reliable buyer's show. They gave the most authentic evaluation through the most personal experience. One had to know that the 8 immortals had different tastes. Male, female, old, young, rich, noble, poor, and lowly were their characteristics. It was very difficult to cook a dish and please 8 different immortals. However, they all agreed that Lin's cooking skills were worthy of the title of Chef God. This represented that Lin's cooking skills were superior to almost everyone. This news began to spread like wildfire in the Celestial Court. Countless foodie immortals began to become restless, and they all turned their attention to the simple and crude shop on the food street. Lin's gourmet restaurant finally became popular. Lin decided not to sell buns for now. He would focus on his gourmet restaurant and make a name for himself. The next afternoon, a group of immortals gathered in the Celestial Court at Lin's gourmet restaurant. Chapter 887. Is this the small shop? It looks so unique. Although the place isn't big, the decoration style is quite exquisite. What's the point of having a big place? How many customers can there be if they only cook one dish a day? If it were up to me, this shop could be even smaller. I just want to ask, why are the walls made of alloy? Haha, are they worried that the shop will explode? The group of immortals laughed and chatted. In the end, a few immortals decided to pool their money and go eat together. The rest of the immortals didn't plan to buy anything, so they chatted on the side while waiting for the result. They didn't enter the shop either. After all, it would be too strange for a group of onlookers to enter a small shop and just watch from the side. The immortals who didn't enter only wanted to see the expressions of the immortals who came out after eating a sky-high price meal. That was what they were most looking forward to. At first, the shop was quiet. The immortals who went in were probably waiting for the food to be served. However, a dazzling light shone through the window and the door, and everything changed. The shop was no longer quiet. Instead, the sound of all kinds of energy surging and exploding could be heard. The immortals outside the shop looked at each other in dismay. At this time, an alluring aroma wafted out of the shop. The incomparably mellow aroma explained everything. The immortals' throats moved, their lips and tongues were dry, and their stomachs couldn't help but growl. They had an urge to go in and eat a big meal. Not long after, the immortals who entered the shop came out. Their faces were strangely flushed, and their expressions revealed great satisfaction. The onlookers eagerly asked, "How was it? How did the food taste?" The taste was okay. But 100,000 spirit stones is a bit expensive, Taoist Master Fei Long, who had entered the shop and eaten, said with a smile. Fairy Ying Chao, whose face was still strangely flushed, nodded. Yes, little friend and Lin's cooking skills are excellent, but 100,000 spirit stones is a bit too expensive. That's all I have to say, you guys can weigh it. Immediately afterward, the other immortals who entered the shop also said the same thing. Hearing this, some of the onlookers believed it, while others pondered and felt that something was wrong. Another day passed. On the opening day of the Celestial Court's Unlin Gourmet Restaurant, another group of immortals had gathered outside. A few immortals who felt that something was amiss came here again and discovered a strange scene. Holy shit! Fairy Ying Chao, Taoist Flying Dragon, why are you here again? Didn't you say yesterday that 100,000 spirit stones was too expensive, so it wasn't worth it? An immortal exclaimed. Fairy Ying Chao blushed. I'm just worried that Mr. and Lin's restaurant is going to close down, so I'm here to help you. The immortal's mouth twitched. Like hell I'd believe you. The other immortals also came to their senses. How was it not delicious? It was clearly too delicious. In order to prevent the other immortals from fighting over it, they had said those words yesterday. If it was a delicious gourmet restaurant, they might introduce it to each other. But what if that gourmet restaurant could only make one dish a day, and they really wanted to eat it? Only a fool would introduce him to someone else. The group of immortals instantly exploded and rushed toward Unlin's gourmet restaurant. That's right, after this incident, the curiosity of the immortals skyrocketed again, which indirectly led to a wave of popularity. Unlin couldn't help but be shocked when he saw the influx of immortals. It's only been 3 days and it's already this popular? This is too exaggerated. Just like that, the small restaurant was instantly filled with immortals. Mr. Unlin, please give me a chang-yi flying to the moon. Get out of my way, I was here first. Give me a dish of yearning day and night. Little friend Unlin, it's me, do you still remember me? Fairy Ying Chao. I'm an old customer, old customers get priority. Brother Unlin, I'm already calling you brother, so give me, Tai-Bai jinxing, some face. Mr. Unlin, I'm Yu Lao. Hurry up and make me a dish, or I'll cut off your marriage. Unlin. Thus, the group of immortals fought over this dish. They sold their sentiments, tried to reason with him, and even tried to coerce him. This put a lot of pressure on Unlin. Unlin was forced to propose a fairer plan. I'm sure all of you know that due to special circumstances, my restaurant can only make one dish a day, so I can't satisfy all of your requests at the same time. How about this? I'll hold an auction. The starting price is 100,000 spirit stones, and I'll raise it by 10,000 each time. The highest bidder wins. That way, we'll be able to resolve all of the unnecessary dispute. What do you think? Boom! All of the immortals instantly exploded upon hearing this. The starting price was already 100,000 spirit stones, and he still wanted to raise the price? 110,000 spirit stones. Fairy Ying Chao raised her hand. Gasp! All of the immortals drew a sharp intake of breath. 120,000 spirit stones. Don't fight with an old man like me, or else I'll cut off your marriage. Yu Lao chuckled. All of the immortals shuddered upon hearing this. This Yu Lao was going to use his trump card. Who would dare to accept this? No one wanted to be a single dog. I, the howling celestial dog, won't fall for this. 130,000 spirit stones. Woof! A dark-skinned man with dog ears chuckled. Gasp! The barefooted weren't afraid of those with shoes. The ancients were right. A little celestial maiden like me isn't afraid of being single. 140,000 spirit stones. Another foodie celestial maiden made a bid. Yu Lao, if you dare to cut off our marriage, we'll team up and tear your house down. 6 immortals made a bid. 150,000 spirit stones. Another commotion erupted. The more Enlin watched, the more elated he became. Haha, fight to your heart's content. As immortals, how could you tolerate being threatened by the Yu Lao? Even if you have to bet your dignity as immortals, you have to fight and beat the Yu Lao down. In any case, he was the one who made the most money in the end. After a round of bidding, the god of thunder and mother of lightning finally won this meal at the price of 200,000 spirit stones. All the immortals came to their senses and were all dumbstruck. What the F***ck? A dish that was priced at 100,000 spirit stones actually became a dish that was priced at 200,000 spirit stones through the auction? That was F***king terrifying. One meal was equivalent to a fairly valuable spirit artifact. Today is our 9,999th wedding anniversary. Enlin, make us a sun and moon harmony dish. The Thunder God Lord said with a buoyant smile. Alright, happy anniversary. Please wait a moment. Enlin happily accepted the money and entered the kitchen to begin his cooking journey. Not long after, the sun and moon combination dish was ready. As soon as the lid was opened, the treasured light of food and a phenomenon appeared. The sun and moon hung in the air at the same time, interdependent and inseparable, bringing with it a sense of eternity. The god of thunder and mother of lightning couldn't control their emotions after eating this dish. They recalled the memories of their 999th wedding anniversary and began to kiss each other in a fit of passion. All the immortals who had their stomachs abused in front of everyone were dumbstruck again. They walked out of the restaurant in a daze. Is this dish really worth 200,000 spirit stones? It's too high. It's definitely too high. This is just a speculation. Once the popularity of the dish dies down tomorrow, it won't fetch such a high price anymore. That's right, that's right. Maybe no one will go and they'll be forced to lower their prices. All the immortals chatted as they walked. At the same time, the news of Enlin's dish being auctioned for 200,000 spirit stones began to spread throughout the celestial court, causing another huge sensation. Countless people began to discuss fervently. Some immortals exclaimed in amazement, while others expressed their doubts and confusion. Some even pointed out that it was a form of speculation. How shameless! A new day arrived. Chef God Enlin's gourmet restaurant in the celestial court was once again packed with immortals. This time, it was auctioned off again. The final price was 250,000 spirit stones. Countless immortals were astonished once again. Were there so many stupid C***NTS? Or rather, another day passed by. On the 5th day, a dish from Enlin's chef god Enlin's gourmet restaurant in the Celestial Court was auctioned for an astronomical price of 300,000 spirit stones. The entire Celestial Court was in an uproar upon hearing this news. Chapter 888. What did 300,000 spirit stones mean? It was almost the price of a high-grade spirit artifact or a 6th-grade immortal pill. An immortal pill for a dish? Was it really that scary? Crazy. They were all king insane. All the immortals had the same thought. The immortals who had bid for Enlin's dishes had all gone crazy. However, when the immortals of the heavenly court asked about the lunatics who had tasted Enlin's cooking, all of them wore expressions of bliss and contentment on their faces, and they expressed that they would continue to eat Enlin's cooking as long as their financial situation allowed for it. The other immortals were confused. Was the heavenly dish really that good? It's all a publicity stunt. Don't be fooled, everyone. We have to spend calmly. An immortal analyzed calmly at this moment. Another immortal yelled with grief and indignation, "Don't be fooled by Enlin. It's really not as good as you think. It'll be too late to regret it if you really buy it." The old chef god of the Celestial Court, Hu Jiahao, also spoke. "Don't worry, I believe you all have a pair of eyes that can tell right from wrong. You all know what's worth and what's not. The price should come down on the 2nd day. On the 6th day, Chef God Enlin's dish was sold for an astronomical price of 320,000 spirit stones. The immortals, Hu Jiahao, on the 7th day, Chef God Enlin's dish was sold for a whopping 350,000 spirit stones. The immortals, Hu Jiahao, on the 8th day, Enlin's dish was sold for 400,000 spirit stones due to the bidding of the Celestial Thearcha's 7 daughters, Rumble. This news exploded in the Celestial Court like a clap of thunder. Countless immortals were dumbfounded, and some onlookers didn't even notice when their melons fell to the ground. 400,000 spirit stones? They couldn't imagine what that meant. Some Earth immortals who had just taken up official positions didn't even have 400,000 spirit stones in their entire family. This wasn't just throwing away 1,000 spirit stones. This was King throwing away 10,000 spirit stones. The immortals who said it was a publicity stunt or that the price would soon be lowered were even more shocked. If a product was sold at a high price once or twice, it could be said to be a publicity stunt. However, the fact that the auction price could rise steadily was the problem of the product. The immortals were not fools. If they had really spent a sky-high price to eat a mediocre dish, they would have cursed and scolded the immortals a long time ago. There would never have been such a scene where the price and reputation of the dish soared. Poverty has limited my imagination. This price seems to have broken the record of the Celestial Court's regular dishes, right? The Celestial Court's regular dishes referred to delicacies that could be listed on the menu and could be cooked normally. As for those dishes made with special techniques and rare ingredients, they were not included. Yes, the previous highest price for a regular dish was Chef God Hu Jiahao's flamboyant dragon and phoenix dance, which was set at 360,000 spirit stones. Now, Enlin's regular dish has been auctioned for 400,000 spirit stones. This is really terrifying. The scariest thing is that it's only been 8 days since he officially debuted in the Celestial Court. Hiss. Everyone realized this and sucked in a breath of cold air again. Such a terrifying rate of growth could no longer be described as the younger generation will surpass the older. This was the rise of a new god. Enlin's name once again shook the Celestial Court. The last time he was famous in the Celestial Court was when he had beaten up Emperor Ziwei. Now, with his cooking skills, he had once again made the immortals of the Celestial Court remember him. The 9th day. Before the Celestial Court's divine chef Enlin's restaurant had even opened, the old chef god Hu Jiahao had appeared and officially issued a challenge to Enlin. Enlin accepted the challenge, and the match was officially set for the next day. Rumble. When the news spread, another magnitude 10 earthquake occurred. And Lin's terrifying rate of growth finally made the elderly chef god unable to sit still any longer. The new chef god and the old chef god had finally begun their official duel. All immortals without missions were looking forward to this pinnacle showdown. How many years has it been since the last chef god contest? Oh? Is there such a thing as a chef god contest? You're still young. You're only 300 years old, so of course you don't know. That was 1,000 years ago, the immortals of the celestial court discussed heatedly, and they all turned their scorching eyes to the small restaurant on the food street. And Lin's restaurant opened as usual today. This time, the auction price dropped a little, and it was only sold for 370,000 spirit stones. After all, there were only a handful of filthy rich people in the celestial court. The 7 gift-giving girls had made Lin very happy and brought him to the peak, so it was normal for the price to drop a little later. After a few fights, the filthy rich people would slow down after eating a meal, and they wouldn't be as crazy as before. Sigh, I only sold it for 370,000 spirit stones. I'm really past my prime, Lin lamented in the restaurant. The immortals in the restaurant almost vomited blood when they heard this. What the hell? Past your prime? You sold it for 370,000 spirit stones, and you're still complaining? Even the highest price of the god of cooking's regular dishes wasn't as high as yours. It was very normal for the price to fluctuate. If the price continued to rise, the immortals of the celestial court would probably start to doubt their lives. No, they were already starting to doubt their lives, an existence that could earn hundreds of thousands of spirit stones a day. Were you afraid? Even the 5 emperors of the celestial court couldn't earn as much money as Lin, let alone the god of cooking. Although their pursuit was no longer the spirit stones, it also showed how terrifying Lin's ability to earn money was. Lin knew that he was indeed hyping up the dish. Although cooking with the frying pan, coupled with his cooking skills and the Vermilion Bird's fire control cheat, could make the dish perfect in every sense of the word. But in terms of value, it really wasn't worth that much money. The filthy rich immortals only wanted something new, so they couldn't come here every day. That's right, this kind of sky-high dish couldn't last long, and there were too few immortals who could afford it. What he could do now was to make his dish explode in popularity once again and make another wave of money. The old god of cooking had given him this opportunity. Next, whether he would soar into the clouds or fall into the abyss would depend on the battle tomorrow. Soon, the day that the immortals of the celestial court were looking forward to arrive. Lin counted the money he had earned in the past 8 days. After deducting the cost, he had earned a total of 1.7 million spirit stones, which was much more than selling steamed buns. With the old god of cooking's help, he should be able to earn a lot more. Lin confidently set foot on the path of slaying a god. In the celestial court, on the floating altar paved with gold and jade, the 9 dragon-engraved jade pillars stood at the edge of the floating heaven altar, exuding astonishing energy waves. Thousands of powerful immortals with ethereal auras had already gathered here. They were all immortals who had taken time out to watch the Battle of the Pinnacle. Such a grand event hadn't been seen in the celestial court for several years. On one side was the rising star of the god of cooking, and on the other side was the old god of cooking. Whether Lin would be able to stabilize his divinity or be beaten back to his original state by Hu Jiahao would all depend on this battle. An elderly man sat on a 9-colored lotus flower throne with 9-colored divine light revolving around his head, and he was the referee for this chef god contest. This elderly man had an extremely powerful background as he was one of the 5 emperors of the celestial court, Emperor Qing Hua of the eastern extreme east. Emperor Qing Hua wasn't the same Qing Hua that Dubai could ascend. He was a Tao integration stage super mighty figure, and he was also known as the Heavenly Lord of Salvation due to his forte in guiding souls from suffering to the afterlife. Emperor Qing Hua was the referee, and his thoughts were actually quite simple. If he could eat the dishes of two top-tier immortal chefs for free, why wouldn't he do it? Beside him, a pair of adorable male and female immortals announced in unison, "Now, let's welcome the contestants of the Chef God contest, Hu Jiahao and Enlin, onto the stage." Chapter 889. His confident and arrogant words sent shock waves through everyone's hearts. The ingredients were even simpler. There was a Dubai vegetable, an eggplant, a celestial court garden chicken, a piece of pork, a few eggs, and some onions and garlic. I've tasted Mr. Enlin's cooking before, and it's a one-of-a-kind dish, so Enlin is definitely going to win this competition. They only had one chance, so they had to do their best and couldn't be too reckless. All right. You can wait there. A warm smile appeared on Emperor Qing Hua's face as he pointed to one of the competition platforms, upon which there were all types of cooking utensils. All of the spectators were definitely not going to sit back and relax, and they all began to chat with one another. It has to be Big Brother Enlin. His cooking is even better. The beautiful maiden chimed in without any hesitation. If you like him, then go after him. It's not like you're going to break the heavens if you're in a relationship. The woman in a jade dress chimed in. I don't think it's a big deal. Young people should have this kind of aggressive spirit. At this moment, Enlin began to make his way onto the competition platform. Jin Tong. Lin Junjun's cheeks were flushed with excitement, and all of the other beautiful celestial maidens were hooting incessantly, creating a beautiful spectacle for the spectators. Enlin extended a respectful salute at the sight of the elderly man. Enlin pays his respects to Emperor Qing Hua. The chef god didn't deny Enlin's cooking skills, and Enlin felt a little less motivated upon seeing this. Emperor Qing Hua stroked his beard with a pleased expression upon seeing Enlin's reaction. It looks like Mr. Enlin is very confident. That's right. When everyone saw the frying pan in Enlin's hand, expressions of shock, disdain, or disappointment appeared on their faces. Look, Enlin is also making his move. Seventh sister, the man of your dreams is making his way onto the competition platform. The celestial maiden in a red dress chuckled seductively as she spoke in a loud voice. Mortals, I will let you experience the terror of being dominated by a frying pan. He had tried cooking dishes with such simple ingredients before, such as the cola chicken dish he made for Xiaolan. However, it was still not good enough. It wasn't amazing enough. After all, he was the one who personally displayed his cooking skills. This kind of scene was more than enough to look at. Something special? Is it ugly? Some of them even rubbed their eyes and looked again. Then, they took a deep breath in disbelief. Yes, arrogance without strength is stupid, but arrogance with strength is charisma. Moreover, his culinary skills might really be as good as what he said? While the immortals were discussing, the little immortal was not idle either. Big Brother Enlin is so handsome, a feast for the eyes. The Jade Maiden said with a clear and melodious voice. What a simple reason. Big sister, what nonsense are you talking about? He was still dressed in white, and his handsome face was filled with confidence and calmness. Even in the face of thousands of immortals, he didn't show the slightest bit of stage fright. Nothing special? No. I think there's something special about it. A certain retarded fan retorted. Enlin might have some special ingredients or secret techniques that can enhance the deliciousness of the dish. However, in the face of such simple ingredients, Hu Jiahao's superb culinary skills, as well as his terrifying experience and creativity as the chef god, are the keys to victory. Everyone turned toward the competition platform to find that Hu Jiahao was making his move. Hu Jiahao and Emperor Qing Hua also made their way toward the competition platform after bowing. Enlin and Hu Jiahao were both deep in thought. The elegant woman, Lin Junjun, glared at the woman beside her with an enraged expression. Perhaps it was because he had received some kind of inspiration, but a thought suddenly flashed through Enlin's mind, and he also knew what kind of dish he was going to make. That dish was related to the newest member of his extended family. Just as they were speaking, another burst of exclamations erupted from the crowd. Arrogance, this was way too arrogant. Chef God Hu Jiahao also made his way onto the platform. He wore a red robe, and his facial features were rough and coarse. His eyes were glowing, and there was a stubble on his face. He appeared to be quite weathered, but his aura was very powerful. His voice had only just fallen when another round of uproar erupted among the immortals. At this moment, the pair of male and female attendants flew toward Enlin and Hu Jiahao, and they waved a hand, upon which the ingredients and condiments appeared before them. And it's an inky black and completely mundane frying pan? The immortals were still discussing spiritedly among themselves, and they all had different opinions. A second later, countless immortals' eyes widened with shock. The pair of attendants announced in a clear voice, "Contestants will have 2 hours to create a dish from the ingredients and condiments provided by us. Whoever makes the dish that is more delicious and of higher quality will win, and Emperor Qing Hua will be the judge. Emperor Qing Hua will also have the final say." Ever since Enlin obtained the frying pan, he had been practicing his cooking skills every single day. After all, he couldn't let such a good frying pan go to waste, so he had mastered quite a few dishes. Enlin looked at Hu Jiahao, and Hu Jiahao looked back at Enlin. This was the first time the two of them had ever met, and it was as if sparks were about to explode in their eyes. Hu Jiahao said in an indifferent voice, "Your cooking skills may be quite good, but I'm going to make all the immortals understand that your dishes aren't worth that price." Enlin didn't really care about this, and a confident smile appeared on his face. The pair of attendants faltered upon hearing this. "Why? It's out. That's the chef god's personal frying pan, the flying god yellow frying pan. It's as pleasing to the eye as beautiful jade, and it was forged from divine rank yellow jade. Not only is it non-toxic, but it's also extremely resistant to high temperatures. Furthermore, it's able to enhance the taste of a dish every time it's cooked." Some immortals were quite annoyed, while others wore expressions of appreciation. However, in Enlin's eyes, it was only SOSO. A celestial maiden in a blue dress smiled. "Seventh sister, I've watched you grow up, and I've never seen you care so much about another man. Do you still want to deny it?" There were over 20 return to void stage celestial immortals, close to 1,000 soul formation stage earth immortals, and spirit nurturing stage immortals. In the eyes of a normal cultivator, they would most likely be so nervous that they wouldn't even be able to walk. "Let me see what kind of frying pan he's using. Am I seeing things? Is that a frying pan?" Enlin was quite surprised to hear this. The criteria for judging a dish wasn't just limited to taste, but also to quality. This required the chef to have the ability to turn something rotten into something extraordinary. After all, the ingredients and condiments were all quite ordinary, so the key was how to improve the quality of the dish. Enlin naturally couldn't back down, and a smile appeared on his face. "Then I'll prove to you that my dishes are worthy of any price." At this moment, both Enlin and Hu Jiahao fell into deep thought. The immortals couldn't help but let out cries of surprise. Looking at the god of cookery's art-like frying pan was a special kind of enjoyment. That's right. If we get him, we'll be able to enjoy delicious food. Just thinking about it makes me happy," the celestial maiden in the yellow dress said with a smile. "Hee, don't praise Enlin so much. Hu Jiahao has been the god of cookery for thousands of years. How could he lose to a kid who just made his debut? Enlin is a newbie who just made his debut. No matter how good his culinary skills are, he shouldn't say something like that. His condescending attitude is already a sign of conceit." Jin Tong snuck up to the Jade Maiden and whispered, "Xiao Yu, who do you think will win?" Chapter 890. Frying pans are mediocre? Frying pans are ugly? You're right. However, I'm going to show you guys what it means to be a chef. Lin was full of fighting spirit as he placed the frying pan on the rack in the air. True immortal chefs all used their own spell techniques and flames instead of external flames. Lin was the same. At this moment, Hu Jiahao had already unleashed his flames, upon which another wave of astonishment erupted. It's here. Divine Chef Hu Jiahao's crimson gold divine flame. This is the divine flame extracted from the very center of the crimson gold purgatory. It has the ability to expel all evil and enhance the pure yang energy of food. As expected, only a divine flame can bring out the power of a divine chef. I wonder what Mr. Lin's flame is. It should be a divine flame as well. He's still quite young, but he's definitely powerful. Lin couldn't help but shake his head in exasperation at the sight of the divine chefs unleashing their divine flames. He really didn't want to flex with a divine flame, but why were these immortals so shocked at the sight of a divine flame? Boom! 1 saint fire and 6 divine fires appeared at the same time. The divine might of the flames was vast and mighty, and the sacred might of the saint fire was intimidating. In an instant, the temperature of the entire place shot up, almost blinding the immortals. Am I seeing things? 7 divine flames? No, it's 6 divine flames and a holy flame. Holy F***ck. That's way too terrifying. Chef God Hu Jiahao's hand trembled in fright upon seeing this, and his flames almost exploded. What the F***ck? Did divine flames cost nothing? So many at once? Was that scary? This time, even Emperor Qing Hua wore an expression of surprise on his face. Lin's expression remained unchanged as he waved a hand through the air. The different flames landed at the bottom of the frying pan at the same time like obedient fairies before dancing with elation. Lin, no, the holy flame vermilion bird, was happily manipulating the flames to prepare for the frying pan. Hu Jiahao was a seasoned divine chef, and he quickly composed himself. This wasn't a competition to see who had more flames. Instead, it was a competition to see who could cook the best. He took out a kitchen knife and began to cut the dishes in front of him. The saber light was like the clouds and mist. It was ethereal and traceless, but it contained bursts of sharpness. Every movement was as smooth as flowing water, pleasing to the eye. Lin also started to use his knife, no, his sword, yes, under the flabbergasted gazes of all the immortals. He withdrew a pitch-black sword, and then slashed at the dishes on the table. This was not because Lin was deliberately going easy on him, but because he was already used to using a sword. Sword techniques were much stronger than saber technique. Furthermore, he had been cooking with his evil-slaying sword for the past 2 years. It could be said that his cooking sword technique was not weaker than the god of cooking's knife technique. Evil-slaying sword, God knows what I've been through. Lin knew what was going on, but the other immortals didn't. Holy **T. Lin is too arrogant. He's cooking with a sword. Mockery, this is blatant mockery. He has gone too far. Maybe people are used to cooking with swords. Bullsh **T. Who the F***ck would use a sword to cook? And an immortal tool to make a cooking utensil? What kind of immortal tool is that? That's true. No one would do something like that unless there's something wrong with their head. Ha ha. 7th sister, your Lin is so interesting. He's a weirdo in all aspects. What an extraordinary man. The eldest of the 7 celestial maidens chortled with glee. Perhaps this is the real deal? The blue-robed celestial maiden's eyes widened. But the sword is a longsword, while the saber is a kitchen knife, Lin Junjun added expressionlessly. The scene was far too bizarre, and she was struck by a sense of dissonance. Was this really the scene of the chef god competition? But gradually, the immortals began to look at Lin in a different light. Even though he was using a sword, his technique was really quite impressive. In fact, it could even be described as breathtaking. What a powerful sword technique! In terms of technique and precision, It's comparable to the god of cooking's saber technique. However, in terms of the fusion of saber technique and cooking intent realms, the god of cooking is still superior. After all, he has a lot of experience. Unlin's flame control is what surprises me the most. You may not be able to tell, but the more I look at him, the more astonished I become. His technique is truly insanely perfect. Both of them have their own advantages. It looks like it's going to be very difficult to determine the winner until the very last moment. That's right, it was impossible to determine the winner of this competition before the results were revealed. Both of them were extremely powerful, and even the most astute person wouldn't be able to say for sure who would emerge as the champion. Hu Jiahao's dish was dabai. Eggplant, celestial court garden chicken, pork, eggs, onions, and garlic were all used. All of the ingredients danced in the air, creating a series of dazzling and mesmerizing images. Half an hour later, the pork was roasted red, and the chicken was even more so golden and shiny. The charcoal and mellow fragrance wafted through the air, creating an extremely alluring scene. Countless immortals were mesmerized. Many of them looked at the dish that was gradually taking shape, and their eyes burned with desire. It couldn't be helped, the aroma was simply too tempting. Many immortals began to praise the god of cooking. Cooking god Hu Jiahao waved a hand, and the crimson gold divine flame enveloped the dish in the wok like a ball. Everyone knew that this was the aroma sealing stage. It was a sealing measure to prevent the freshness and fragrance of the food from dissipating. This way, when the consumer opened the lid, they would be able to eat the most delicious dish immediately. Unlin had also entered the final aroma sealing stage. However, he had been sealing the food's aroma from beginning to end, along with the uncooked life energy. It was also because of this that no one knew how his dish would taste like. Rumble! The crimson gold flame swept up a ball of food and landed on the pure white dish. Hu Jiahao covered the dish with his hand, instantly sealing everything inside the lid. Success! The spectating immortals cheered again. Setting aside the food, just the scene of the god of cooking was extremely pleasing to the eye. He deserved to be cheered for. Hu Jiahao nodded at the immortals with a faint smile on his face. After showing off his skills, and having someone shout 666, no matter who it was, they would feel very happy. Boom! Another scorching wave of flames surged forth. The white holy flame seemed to have the clear cry of a vermilion bird, and the 6 divine flames formed a beautiful pair of wings, carrying the impenetrable food directly toward the large dish. Finally, the flames exploded like fireworks. Unlin seized this opportunity and immediately covered the dish with the lid. This time, the cheers were like a huge wave, and there were even some shrill cries of immortal maidens. They had all been won over by Unlin's superb swordsmanship, cooking skills, and fire control technique. There was no harm without comparison. Hu Jiahao's lips twitched as he listened to these completely different cheers. It's all just some fancy stuff. The real deciding factor is the food. Unlin smiled confidently. Then let's see who's more of a noob. I'm definitely more of a noob, Hu Jiahao replied without hesitation. Chapter 891. After saying this, Hu Jiahao suddenly felt like something was amiss. Unlin repressed his laughter. Hu Jiahao glowered at Unlin with rage. If it weren't for the fact that there were so many spectators around, the two of them would most likely be engaged in a battle. Please bring the dishes to the judges, Hu Jiahao and Unlin, the pair of male and female attendants said in unison. Both of them made their way toward Emperor Qinghua with large plates in their hands before placing them on the table. Emperor Qinghua swallowed involuntarily. Being able to eat 2 free supreme-grade dishes in a single day was a very rare occasion. So, whose dish should I eat first? He glanced at the 2 lidded dishes before him. Seeing as divine chef Hu Jiahao finished his dish before Unlin, then let's eat Hu Jiahao's dish first. A faint smile appeared on Emperor Qinghua's face as he removed the lids. All of a sudden, a golden light as dazzling as the sun appeared. It's the treasured light of food. All of the immortal's eyes widened as they let loose cries of surprise. His dish has been infused with the Tao realm of an immortal chef. When the quality of the dish reaches the pinnacle, a golden treasured light will appear. Divine Chef Hu Jiahao's treasured light is as dazzling as a miniature sun. The quality of his dish is extremely high. Just as everyone was exclaiming with amazement, the projections of 5 celestial maidens began to dance in the air. At the same time, heavenly music began to reverberate through the air. Is this the intent realm of food? It's so beautiful. Sister 4, I feel like those celestial maidens are even more beautiful than your dancing. Piss off. Unlin was also quite surprised. So it was possible to create a phenomenon without the help of a frying pan? It had to be said that Hu Jiahao's Tao realm was superior to his. Soon, the phenomenon disappeared, and the light converged on the plates of food. Only then did everyone turn their attention to the dishes. 5 fairies, who looked as if they had been carved out of jade, were standing around the dishes. Their purplish-yellow dresses were draped over their fair bodies, making them appear elegant and otherworldly. Between them was a flawless full moon that was glowing with a faint light. The immortals were dazed. A thought popped up in their minds. Was this really a dish? However, very quickly an incomparable fragrance began to spread. The fragrance of the egg white and the tender and fresh fragrance of the chicken blended together, causing one's appetite to increase. My God! This fragrance! I can't take it anymore. An immortal's eyes lit up as he stared fixedly at the dishes on the table. If not for his friend holding him back, he would have pounced on the food like a hungry wolf. Cooking God Hu Jiahao smiled and cupped his hand. This dish is called Immortals Surrounding the Moon. Please have a taste, Your Majesty. Emperor Qing Hua nodded with a faint smile upon hearing this. All right, then let me have a taste of Divine Chef Hu's cooking. He stretched out his chopsticks and picked up a piece of the moon. He found that the moon was being pulled, and it started to fluctuate rhythmically. It started to disappear from the edge, as if the moon was declining. Emperor Qing Hua's eyes lit up. The waxing and waning of the moon? Interesting. Everyone exclaimed again, amazing special effects. I really want to eat it. Emperor Qing Hua placed the piece of meat into his mouth, and his entire body shuddered involuntarily as the delicious aroma of the meat assaulted his entire body. Super delicious. If there weren't anyone else around, he would be able to devour this dish like a tornado. However, in order to maintain his image, he could only chew slowly with an expression of appreciation and forced himself to be reserved. To hell with his reserved attitude. This was a blissful yet painful experience. Emperor Qing Hua felt like his taste buds were being stimulated by the fragrance, and he felt like he was about to swallow his own tongue. He instinctively wanted to pick up a second piece of meat, but he hesitated momentarily at the sight of the celestial maiden before picking up another piece of meat from the plate. The celestial maiden was picked up and eaten in one bite. Ah! Cries of surprise erupted from the crowd. The celestial maiden was so adorable, why was he eating her? Emperor Qing Hua's eyes lit up as he began to comment. The exterior of this celestial maiden dish is carved from egg white, and the clothes are woven from egg yolk and eggplant fibers. The fragrance of nature emanates from its entire body. The first bite is refreshing, but the aftertaste is endless. This is a superb vegetarian dish. He then continued to comment on the moon. As for the moon in the center, it is made from chicken and pork that have been meticulously cooked with crimson golden flames. The freshness of the meat has been preserved to 100%, and it has an alluring and delicious aroma. This is a superb vegetarian dish. The perfect combination of meat and vegetable is extremely creative, and his chopsticks never stopped moving. Emperor Qing Hua exclaimed in admiration, but his chopsticks never stopped moving as he continued to eat. All of the other immortals' eyes were filled with envy. They couldn't eat such delicious food, so they could only stare at it with envy and jealousy. What do we do, seventh sister? I feel like Mr. Enlin is going to lose. The celestial maiden in a green dress smacked her lips as she stared at the moon with a scorching light in her eyes. A faint smile appeared on Lin Junjun's face. And Lin's cooking is the best. I believe he can win. Yo! The woman in a red dress turned to look at her. Yo yo yo! All of the celestial maidens turned to look at her, as if they had found something to make fun of. Thus, another round of teasing ensued. Lin Junjun. Humph, it does look and smell good, but Enlin's is definitely better. The lightning goddess had already become a fan of Enlin's after eating one of his dishes. You're right, wife. The lightning god chimed in with a wide grin. Even though he said that, the emotions in his words were already a clear indication of the quality of Chef God Hu Jiao's dish. If it weren't for the fact that this dish posed a huge threat to Enlin's chances of winning, they wouldn't be saying this. All of the other immortals discussed among themselves with expressions of amazement and admiration. A triumphant smile appeared on Hu Jiao's face as he glanced at Enlin. Enlin's expression remained calm as he looked at Emperor Qing Hua. Emperor Qing Hua finished all of Hu Jiao's dishes, and his eyes narrowed slightly as he smacked his lips in relish. After a short pause, he turned to Enlin's dish. Now, let me see the cooking skills of the Celestial Court's new chef god, Mr. Enlin. He chuckled as he lifted the lid of the dish. All of the immortals also turned to look at the second dish upon hearing this. After the lid was lifted, no treasured light was revealed. There's no treasured light? All of the immortals were astonished. Even Emperor Qing Hua's expression shifted. If a dish didn't even have treasured light, then its quality would drop to a lower level. There was no need to even mention the visual and auditory feast that occurred when the lid was opened. However, when that dish really appeared in front of them, they couldn't help but sigh. Their astonishment transformed into incredulity. A huge translucent, snowy white egg stood atop the dish, exuding a flawless white light under the light of the sun. Chapter 892. It was a white egg? How did he do that? Expressions of incredulity appeared on the faces of countless immortals. This didn't feel like a cooking show. Instead, it felt like a magic show. Enlin used cabbage, eggs, and chicken to make an egg? What a joke. However, in the next instant, Emperor Qing Hua's expression suddenly became serious. Wait. This white eggshell is made from a mixture of eggshell and cabbage. Gotcha. A crack suddenly appeared on the pristine white eggshell. A refreshing and vibrant aura erupted forth, and it was as if there was a miniature sun within the eggshell as boundless golden light erupted from the crack. All of the immortals looked on with bated breath, as if they were witnessing a miracle. Boom! The top half of the eggshell suddenly exploded, immediately following which a crisp, pleasant cry erupted. A golden flaming phoenix broke through the eggshell and flew into the sky. Scorching, dazzling wings, a pair of vibrant eyes, and an aura that was imbued with vitality. All of the immortals were dumbstruck. A celestial court disciple made a mistake and created a true phoenix? F***ck. What a joke. This was way too King fantastical. This didn't make any sense. However, all of this was happening right before their eyes. A faint smile appeared on Enlin's face. He had expended a lot of effort in order to create this phoenix. The power of the mutant blood phoenix within his body had played a major role, and of course, the flaming vermilion bird had also played a significant role. This was the life of the mutant blood phoenix. The phoenix danced through the heavens as it sang a heavenly song. Everyone's attention was drawn to this peculiar scene. The phoenix's body grew larger and larger, and at its peak, its flames were as scorching as the sun, eclipsing the sun in the sky. However, just as the heavenly Tao revolved around reincarnation, so did life. After the most dazzling moment, fireworks would gradually dim before finally disappearing. The phoenix's body slowly shrank, and its flames also began to dim and wither. It began to wail with grief and resistance, as if it were struggling and unyielding on the path of Tao, and it didn't want to walk toward death like this. However, this world was cruel. The phoenix could only struggle and decline. In the end, it turned into ashes and disappeared. When the immortals of the celestial court saw the phoenix's birth, glory, and final fall, a certain chord in their hearts was tugged, especially the phoenix's resentful wail before its death, which struck them like a heavy hammer. Were they not phoenixes on the path of seeking? After the peak of glory, there would be a day when the curtain would fall. No one could escape the erosion of time. Many immortals' eyes reddened, and some fairies even began to shed tears. Hu Jiahao's eyes widened and his body swayed slightly. He had lost. In terms of the concept of cooking Tao, he had completely lost. The dishes cooked by first-rate immortal chefs generally pursued the impact of the five senses and the divine soul. Most of them were gorgeous and beautiful, which could make people feel happy while eating. However, who would believe that a mere concept could make immortals cry? This was the only one in the world. This was no longer a F***king comparison on the same level. The simple display of artistic conception and the integration of one's comprehension of the path of seeking the Tao were like a cheesy comedy film and an artistic film with a deep meaning. They were completely incomparable. Celestial Maiden Ying Chao wiped away her tears. Mr. and Lin's cooking is so touching. Is this really a dish? I feel like I'm seeing my entire life. Woof! The howling celestial dog murmured as tears flowed from its eyes. Heroes grow old while beauties grow old. This is the power of time. No one can escape from it. This dish is far too tragic. Yu Lao shook his head and sighed with emotion. Just as all of the immortals were sighing with emotion, Emperor Qing Hua looked into the eggshell, where there was a chicken with its wings spread open. Sigh. A fallen phoenix is no match for a chicken. It was also at this moment that there seemed to be flames burning within the chicken. What's this? Emperor Qing Hua's pupils contracted, and he was completely unable to remain calm. Countless immortals also turned toward the chicken. This was a chicken that seemed to have been reborn and was on fire. The heavenly Tao was cruel, but there was still a sliver of hope. The phoenix had fallen with an anguished cry, but it was still alive. Good, good, good. Emperor Qing Hua uttered the word, good, 3 times in a row with undisguised approval and envy on his face. Just this tiny phenomenon elevated the intent realm of the dish to a whole new level. An extremely alluring aroma began to waft through the air, making everyone salivate. This dish of mine is known as the death of the phoenix. Please have a taste, Emperor Qing Hua, Anlin said with a smile. Haha, then I won't hold back. Emperor Qing Hua picked up his chopsticks eagerly. He had only just tore off a piece of chicken with his chopsticks before placing it into his mouth, upon which the aroma instantly erupted. Emperor Qing Hua's body shuddered as a strange blush appeared on his face. So fragrant! So exciting! It was simply too delicious. The skin was crispy, and the insides were also extremely flavorful. It was as if they were a single entity. It was indescribably delicious. This type of meaty aroma was completely unheard of, and it was hard to believe that this was only a chicken. All of the immortals had scorching expressions on their faces. They had never felt such a strong desire to taste such a delicious dish before. All of them were filled with envy and jealousy as they stared at Emperor Qing Hua, who was gorging himself. They gritted their teeth, but there was nothing they could do. They really wanted to taste what this dish tasted like. After Emperor Qing Hua finished eating, he discovered that there was a small phoenix constructed from flames within the chicken. This phoenix seemed to be imbued with the intent of great freedom, and it had detached itself from its mortal body before disappearing from this world. Normal roasted meat is roasted from the outside to the inside, but Chef God and Lin's roasted chicken is roasted from the inside to the inside, so the phoenix inside must be the second source of fire. This is the first time I've seen this type of roasting method. It requires extremely fearsome control over fire to achieve such a harmonious cooking. It's quite clear that Enlin has done this to perfection. After making his comments, Emperor Qing Hua turned toward the two people standing before him. All of the immortals, including Hu Jiahao and Enlin, were getting a little nervous. They knew that it was time to announce the winner of this cooking contest. In terms of taste and the quality of the food, Enlin and Hu Jiahao are evenly matched. However, in terms of culinary intent realm, Enlin's performance this time is superior. Hence, the champion of this Chef God competition is Chef God Enlin. Emperor Qing Hua's voice reverberated throughout the entire heavenly altar. All of the immortals applauded in unison, and some of them were even whooping with joy. A hint of dejection and regret appeared on Chef God Hu Jiahao's face, and he heaved a faint sigh before also applauding. He had lost this competition. Boom, 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 dazzling divine light erupted from the 9 jade dragon pillars, which arced through the air before landing on Enlin's body, making him appear as if he were a divine being. At that moment, he was blessed with glory and divine light. Enlin had finally reached the pinnacle of cooking in the celestial court. Chapter 893. Just as everyone was cheering, the howling celestial dog silently made its way to Emperor Qing Hua's side. "What are you doing?" Emperor Qing Hua glared at the howling celestial dog. The howling celestial dog was currently in the form of a human with dog ears, and it recoiled slightly in the face of Emperor Qing Hua's glare. However, it soon began to drool as it looked at the dishes on the plate. "Emperor, I think you shouldn't waste food. We need to be environmentally friendly." Emperor Qing Hua glanced at the two plates. How could he have left such delicious food unfinished? He was perplexed. "What are you talking about? I've already eaten the dishes." The howling celestial dog pointed at the plate. "There are still chicken bones left. If you don't want them, give them to me." He couldn't help but drool again as he spoke. Emperor Qing Hua. "No. Why? If you don't want to eat them, why waste them?" The howling celestial dog roared with grief and indignation. Emperor Qing Hua chuckled and flicked a finger, upon which the bones on the plate were reduced to nothingness. The howling celestial dog was dumbstruck again. He would rather destroy the bones than give them to him? What the hell was going on? What kind of vendetta was this? Emperor Qing Hua couldn't be bothered to pay him any heed. This B***starred was going to eat the bones that he had licked. Enlin shot to fame after this battle. He had successfully slain a god under the witness of over 1,000 immortals. Countless immortals were still thinking back to the phenomenon that had just taken place and the delicious aroma wafting through the air. How great would it be if they could enjoy a meal like Emperor Qing Hua? At this moment, a faint smile appeared on Enlin's face. "My new dish, the Death of the Phoenix, will be officially released for sale at my restaurant tomorrow. If any of you are interested, you can come to my restaurant to try it." Boom! His words were like a bomb that instantly ignited the desires of all the immortals present. "Mr. Enlin is so understanding. I wanted to eat it, but I didn't think that I would get the chance to do so on the second day." Celestial Maiden Ying Chao's face was filled with excitement. "I've already seen the dish that was able to defeat Chef God Hu Jiahao, but I haven't had a chance to interact with it. It looks like it's time to go to that restaurant again," Heavenly Monarch Xingguang said in an indifferent voice. "The Death of the Phoenix tomorrow belongs to us 7 celestial maidens. No matter how high the price is, we will bid for it." The 7 prodigal women shouted in unison. "Don't anyone snatch it from me. Otherwise, I'll cut off your marriage line." Yu Lao shouted. Then, the old man was beaten to a pulp by a group of immortals. Enlin looked at the immortals who had suddenly become enthusiastic, and a smug smile appeared on his face again. Hu Jiahao, on the other hand, had a look of realization on his face. "So that's how it is. In the end, I'm the one who made him a success. Not only did I stabilize his godhead, but I also made his popularity soar. Maybe the price of his dishes will soar again, the god of cooking's mood was very complicated. He clearly wanted to suppress them, but why did it backfire? Unlin greeted all the immortals, and there was a wave of familiarity. They were potential customers. With so many fortune immortals around, they naturally had to treat them better. Customers are the god of fortune. Bah! It was God. These words were not said for nothing. After chatting for a while, Unlin returned to the small attic and continued to study the new cuisine. Although he had achieved great results, he must not stop because of this. Only by innovating and continuously becoming stronger could he continue to climb to the peak. When Enlin told Dabai, Su Xiaolan, and the others that he had won the God of Cooking competition, they were really shocked. Big Brotherin, the power of the frying pan is already so terrifying? It even defeated the God of Cooking, woof! Dabai said in shock. It's me. I'm so terrifying. I'm too powerful. Do you understand? Unlin retorted very seriously. Then, a series of heartless echoes followed. Yes, 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 Big Brotherin is the best. Master's cooking is the best, and the dishes are the best. Unlin was very bored after hearing this, so he continued to cultivate his cooking skills. The next day was the 10th day of the Celestial Court's opening. His gourmet restaurant was overflowing with immortals, and the scene of the auction was unusually lively. The 7 celestial maidens were originally determined to get Unlin's new dish, but they were forced back by the celestial Dharch who learned of the news. The celestial Dharch couldn't stand his 7 daughters giving money to another man like crazy. For Unlin, this was not a problem at all, because his new dish, the life of the phoenix, was won by the 5 burly men of the 5-star lords at a high price of 500,000 spirit stones. Once the news came out, it caused another sensation in the celestial court. Unlin was like a celebrity, and he became the topic of many immortals in their leisure time. 500,000 spirit stones. One had to know that when Unlin cooked other dishes, he would at least use expensive ingredient. However, for this dish, he used Dabai's vegetables, eggs, and other low-cost ingredients, which could be said to be a crazy profit. This was a way to make money that countless people were jealous of, but there was nothing they could do about it. The record that Unlin had set himself was finally broken by himself 2 days later. Seeing the popularity of Unlin's dish skyrocket again, some immortals who called for calm consumption didn't know what to say. They were all King crazy. Some immortals even specifically went to Unlin's gourmet restaurant and asked expectantly and imploringly, Unlin, Chef God, do you still want to accept disciples? Coach, I want to learn how to cook. Unlin's answer was, exclusive craftsmanship, not to be shared. Another day passed, and the popularity died down slightly. The final price was only 420,000 spirit stones. In other words, he had earned 410,000 spirit stones for nothing. The celestial Dharch finally heaved a sigh of relief and released the 7 celestial maidens. The next day, the price of Unlin's life of the phoenix rose again, reaching 450,000 spirit stones. That's right. The 7 celestial maidens bid for it. The celestial Dharch. His daughters were so cute, and he couldn't bear to hit them. Should he just beat Unlin to death? Unlin, of course, didn't care about the storm outside. He was so obsessed with cooking that he couldn't extricate himself. His name also became famous in the celestial court. People were always curious and wanted something new when they rose. Unlin defeated Hu Jiahao in the God of Cooking competition, which was his first peak as an immortal chef. That was also when his popularity reached its peak. However, after a period of time, the popularity would slowly die down. The final price of his life of the phoenix slowly fell in these 10 days, finally stabilizing at around 300,000 spirit stones. Some immortals gradually lost interest in the life of the phoenix and turned their attention to other cuisines. This didn't matter to Unlin. It was just that the cost was a little higher. Occasionally, when there weren't any tycoons, it was sold for a low price of 100,000 or 200,000 spirit stones. But no matter what, it was better than selling stuffed buns. The adorable students of the United University of Cultivation missed Enlin's demise so much that they signed a petition calling for Enlin to come back and sell stuffed buns. When Enlin was in a good mood, he would also come back to school to sell stuffed buns. All of the buns were sold out instantly, and he once again created a legend for the United University of Cultivation. Before he knew it, a month had passed. More than a month had passed since Chang-yi agreed to refine the divine pill. Enlin calculated the money he had earned from cooking. Not much, only 6 million. Too little. Chapter 894. If other immortals were to hear Enlin's words, they would immediately go berserk and beat him up. I can't earn that much money even after working my entire life, and you're complaining that 6 million spirit stones a month is too little? Are you asking for a beating? However, the cultivation world was just like the mortal world in that the distribution of resources was extremely uneven. The resources available to the top-rate mighty figures and normal cultivators were on completely different levels. In the eyes of normal people, General Wang's target of 100 million spirit stones was extremely unrealistic and unrealistic. However, this amount of money was really just a small target for him. He was an honest man, so why did they have to turn him into a picture bag? Similarly, earning 6 million spirit stones in a month was not an exaggeration, but he really did feel like a failure. If that was the case, then he wouldn't be able to reach his target of 100 million spirit stones a month. The popularity of the chef god was slowly waning, and he might not even get as popular as he was in the past month. What could he do? A sense of urgency welled up in Enlin's heart again. However, earning money was a matter of fate, and he couldn't think of any other way to earn a few million spirit stones a month. How about killing enemies and stealing their treasures? This was the fastest way that Enlin knew of to earn money. However, the problem was that he had no enemies. He thought about it for a moment before dialing Lu Qianhuan's voice transmission talisman. "Hello, Enlin, why are you suddenly sending me a voice transmission?" Lu Qianhuan's cheerful voice sounded from the other end. "Ahem, I just want to know about the development of our sect. Are there any evil sects that want to attack our sect?" Enlin was a little expectant. TSK. Our 4-9 Immortal sect is renowned across the entire continent, and we've been blessed by the heavens. Even the Heavenly Sword sect isn't scared of us, so who would be so stupid as to come here and provoke us? Has there been any powerful devil sect or evil sect that has appeared recently? Recently, isn't the Heavenly Court reorganizing the 9 regions? There are 1 or 2 small fishes and shrimps. Which of the large demon sects isn't like a turtle hiding its head? Some even sent their disciples to do good deeds everywhere, eliminating evil and promoting good. In any case, the kingdom of the 9 states is a peaceful place. Enlin looked up into the sky with a dejected expression upon hearing Lu Qianhuan's words. Was it so hard to find a villain these days? He had no choice but to continue cooking to earn money. Actually, there were benefits to making money through cooking. It could actually complete the system's mission. Yes, the progress of the War God Heaven Blasting Cannon mission had increased again. Make 10 mighty figures above the Return to Void stage fall in love with you, apart from their servants. Based on brainwaves, divine sense fluctuations, and the system's calculations, current mission progress is 10+/10. Yishi, Lin Junjun, Yen Hua, Xiao Zhe, Tina, the Jade Bone Immortal Butterfly, Dongfang Zhuangshi, Celestial Maiden He, Celestial Maiden Ing Chao, Tai Yi the Enlightened. That's right, there were already many foodie Return to Void stage mighty figures who had fallen in love with him because of his cooking. Perhaps, in order to conquer their hearts, one had to conquer their stomachs first, right? If he wanted to complete this mission, all he had to do was make the Return to Void stage mighty figures hate him. Enlin didn't want to attract hatred, so he put this aside for the time being and let fate take its course. When the time came, the mission would naturally be completed. The days passed by one after another. Before he knew it, It was time for the annual free-for-all battle. Thinking back, the system would issue him a mission every time he participated in the free-for-all battle. The chaotic alloy brick and the frying pan were both treasures that he had obtained from the lottery after completing the free-for-all battle mission. They didn't appear to be very useful at first glance, but they were terrifyingly useful treasures. This time was no exception. And Lin's system lit up as soon as he entered the forest of 1,000 peak. His body trembled with excitement as he opened the system to see the contents of the mission. Detected that host has entered the forest of 1,000 peaks to commence the free-for-all battle. The following mission has been issued. Frowny face. Obtain first place in the free-for-all battle and ascend to the top of the immortal rankings board. And Lin was ecstatic. This mission was a piece of cake for him. However, he was dumbstruck when he saw the mission rewards. Mission completed. Reward: 2 super delicious lollipop. Mission failed. Make the lollipops between host's legs disappear for 100 years. And Lin: lollipops my A**s. Also, make the lollipops between host's legs disappear? Did the system have some kind of F***king misunderstanding about lollipops? And Lin cursed in his heart. The system's rewards and punishments were completely different. He was going to file a complaint. Wait a minute. If they were equal, his eyes widened, and he suddenly thought of a possibility that made him shudder with fear. If the 2 lollipops on the system meant the same thing, then did that mean he would have 3 lollipops? And Lin drew a sharp intake of breath and shook his head violently. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. How could something like this happen? The 2 lollipops definitely meant different things. He shook off the complicated thoughts in his mind and began the free-for-all battle. Last year, due to the mission, I, the mighty little war god of the Celestial Court, didn't dare to make a move. As a result, I gained the nickname of Turtle and Bastard among the students. And Lin raised his head, and the corners of his lips curled up slightly as a fierce light flashed through his eyes. Now, I'm going to let all of you experience what it's like when I, and how, am truly unyielding. He had already made up his mind. He was going to use his true power to tell these students that it was time for Turtle and Bastard and to retire from the stage of history. And Lin didn't fly atop his brick. Instead, he took a step forward, and his terrifying divine sense enveloped an area with a radius of 5 kilometers around him. All of the students who had yet to encounter an enemy were within his field of vision. That's right, with the terrifying power of his consciousness, it was no longer difficult for him to detect the situation within a 5-kilometer radius. 126 adorable students, are you all ready? A faint smile appeared on Lin's face as he snapped his fingers toward the sky. Boom! With him as the epicenter, a terrifying energy fluctuation erupted forth for a radius of 5 kilometers. All of the students' expressions shifted drastically as they sensed his aura. At this moment, a familiar yet unfamiliar voice suddenly sounded. 4th year, Class 1, Lin, please enlighten me. All 126 students' expressions shifted drastically. Immediately afterward, an indistinct projection of Lin materialized before them, as if he were a projection of energy. Lin was the #1 legendary figure of the university. Who would have thought that the first enemy they encountered would be such a terrifying being? How were they supposed to continue? Some of the self-proclaimed prodigies were so terrified that their legs had turned to jelly. A woman in a pink dress with a hint of seductiveness seductively emanating from her dignified appearance appeared. She looked at Lin, and she did her best to compose herself. Senior Lin, I am 3rd year, Class 5, Chiu Luotao, and I've finally reached the 9th stage Dao body. My goal is to make the top 100 on the Immortal Rankings board. Can you spare me this once? I'll be eternally grateful to you in the future. I can give you a 100-meter head start, Lin said emotionlessly. The woman's face paled, and she gritted her teeth as she fled into the distance. This kind of situation was not uncommon within a 5-kilometer radius. Some students chose to fight, some chose to beg for mercy, and some chose to flee. Lin muttered to himself for 3 seconds before snapping his fingers toward the sky again. Boom! Blue lightning fell from the sky, and like claws tearing through the air, it crashed down indiscriminately upon the 126 students on the ground. Anguished wails reverberated through the clouds. Teacher Ji who was responsible for supervising the battles in this area, almost fell off his spirit tool. He immediately cursed, F*ck me. How the F*ck is that possible? Chapter 895. He wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead and forced himself to analyze the situation calmly. The free-for-all battle requires 2 parties to meet, and one party has to introduce themselves before the battle can begin. Lin's projection materialized from his consciousness can be considered as him, so it shouldn't be a violation of the rules. Su Zimo. Combat capability. 0. Achievement score. 0. There were always 1 or 2 students of the 10th stage Dao body who managed to block a lightning strike before fleeing for their lives. They didn't fight anyone, and their priority was to escape from the southwestern region. He had actually been releasing his divine sense this entire time, but his hands were trembling uncontrollably now. Vice Principal Yuhua. Chiu Luotao. Combat capability. 0. Achievement score. 0. There's no need to mention Lin. Just this technique alone is already more powerful than me. What should I write about his combat prowess? Should I just make an estimate? Ji who scratched his head frantically, but he still continued writing in the end. Holy F*ck. Lin killed even faster than my record. Is there no one left who can stop this monster? Earth Immortal Ji who yelled in grief and indignation. Many students scoffed at this. Then, they soon arrived at the White Jade Plaza, where they hugged each other and cried bitterly. The students who had been eliminated for other reasons stared blankly at the joyous scene before them, and they suddenly felt like they were out of place on the white stone plaza. The students who had just been struck by lightning were all confused. Yeah, how did you know? You are, but principal, this has severely affected the balance of the trial. Ji who yelled in grief and indignation. The students who had come out first suddenly felt a lot better upon seeing the hundreds of new students lying on the ground, as if they had been struck by lightning. The anguished cries of the students rose and fell incessantly. Lin. Combat capability. 2000 achievement score. 1850. Some of them even went up to greet him. Hey buddy, you were also struck by Senior Lin, right? What? How could Lin do this? I'm so useless. Some of the more fragile female students even covered their faces and wept in grief. Vice Principal Yuhua chuckled. That's perfect. These arrogant students will have a taste of how cruel the difference in power levels in the cultivation world is. Here, there were still people to save them. If they were to leave society, the price might be their lives. Alright, let's not talk about it anymore. Record it properly. Many students also began to doubt their lives. Even though they were geniuses in various fields, at this moment they couldn't help but think sadly, why is there such a huge gap between people? Before Earth Immortal Ji who could finish writing down the numbers, another burst of anguished screams rang out from several kilometers away. Hey Earth Immortal Ji who? What's the matter? Vice Principal Yuhua's voice sounded rather leisurely. Earth Immortal Ji who? Completely different from his Taoist name, he had the appearance of an extremely delicate and handsome young man. He looked gentle and weak. Haha, what a coincidence! I was also struck by Lin. The student who greeted him said cheerfully. As a teacher, you must be serious and responsible. You must be calm and steady in dealing with all kinds of unexpected situations. And they were eliminated at the same time? Calm down. No matter what happens, you must remain calm. Thus, word of Lin's transformation into a carnivorous demon in the southwestern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks began to spread throughout the entire Forest of 1,000 Peaks. However, this gentle and weak young man couldn't help but swear on the spot. Earth Immortal Ji, who then continued to write down the names of the other eliminated students. Despair. Humiliation. Extreme injustice in the southwestern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks. Then, he quickly discovered that this really was a good opportunity to communicate with Lin. 99% of the students on the plaza had been eliminated by Lin. What a fellow sufferer! Yuhua's explanation was that Lin was also a student of Xiuxian United University. He had crushed the noobs through his own power, so how could he accuse him of cheating? A golden light flashed past. Aren't you Wang Puda from third-year Class 1? How did you get eliminated so quickly? A student with a pitch-black face and hair standing on end from the explosion asked in surprise. Huh? What a coincidence! I was also eliminated by Godin. Another student with a pitch-black face exclaimed. If Lin could hear Vice Principal Yuhua's words, he would definitely be elated. Perhaps he would even reward the vice principal with a steamer of stuffed buns, ignored by Dubai. So we're all the same? Over 100 students had been eliminated at the same time, and they had encountered Lin at the same time. That meant they didn't even get a chance to fight him one-on-one before they were eliminated. Ji, who took a deep breath. I want to report someone for cheating during the trial. Ahem. Don't even mention it. My luck really is rotten to the max. I encountered senior student Lin. How could I have survived? Wang Puda spoke with a grief-stricken expression. 126 students. Only one student's protective golden light hasn't been unleashed, and Lin doesn't seem to have continued to attack. Over 100 students instantly appeared on the empty white jade plaza. Could it be? Vice Principal Yuhua hung up the voice transmission. Soon, all of the students discovered that something was amiss. Why did everyone look as if they had been struck by lightning? Earth Immortal Ji, who recorded the results of the students with tears streaming down his face. He wrote down names over and over again, then gave them zeros. He wanted nothing more than to grow a few more hands. They were able to withstand an attack from Lin, so they're extremely powerful. He began to write on his record. He wrote down zeros one by one, and he suddenly felt like these students were so pitiful. They had been insta-killed before they even had a chance to attack. How could Lin be so heartless? Ji, who took a deep breath and began to record on his record board. You were killed by Lin? The two of them fell into a peculiar silence as they looked at each other's charred faces. A student who had been struck by lightning and was lucky enough not to unleash his protective golden light was running around telling everyone to get as far away from the southwestern direction as possible and to be careful of Lin. The free-for-all battle requires that no one can team up to attack the same person. Those 126 students were all fighting against Lin, but they didn't know each other, so there was no way they could team up to attack each other again. How long had it been? F***ck. I haven't even finished recording down the numbers, and you've given me over 100 more? Earth Immortal Ji, who reported Lin to the vice principal of Yuhua, but his report was rejected. In the southwestern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks, lightning continued to fall from the sky. Brother, everyone was struck by Lin. What's there to be proud of? Over 100 students who had been eliminated appeared at the same time, all of them lying on the ground with miserable expressions. Holy F***ck. You were also beaten by Lin? Ji, who drew a sharp intake of breath before silently dialing a voice transmission talisman. Wu Zhong. Combat capability. 103. Achievement score. 0 students. Wah. Senior student Lin doesn't know how to be gentle with women? A female student cried and complained loudly as she applied a healing fluid to her face. This place became hell for the student. His lips twitched as he spoke. These students didn't even get to touch Enlin, so there was no point in talking about a combined attack. They were completely steamrolled by Enlin. Right at this moment, another burst of golden light flashed. Ronglo, combat capability 0, achievement score 0. Over 100 students looked at each other, and they seemed to have guessed something as 10,000 mythological beasts stampeded over their hearts. Senior student Enlin, is he F** king using a map cannon? Chapter 896. Before they knew it, several thousand students had already gathered on the White Jade Plaza. The smell of burnt flesh was still wafting through the air. Some of the beautiful young women's hair had also become fashionable curls. Some of the handsome upperclassmen's hair had even been struck into an afro. What a trendy scene! If they had the ability, they really wanted to thank the hairdresser, Enlin. That's right, most of them had been eliminated by the great demon, Enlin. All of the students had experienced the terrifying experience of being struck by lightning. They huddled together and confided in one another. Wah! That was too terrifying. Didn't you guys say that Senior Enlin was a coward who didn't dare to fight during the free-for-all battle? Why did he strike me with lightning as soon as we met? A first-year female student felt like she had been deceived, and she couldn't help but burst into tears. Sigh, there's simply too much of a difference in power. Don't the teachers do anything about it? If we were unlucky, we wouldn't even have a chance to fight against Enlin. How are we supposed to judge his true power? A senior student who had been insta-killed shook his head and sighed. The students were all complaining, and some of them had even developed a psychological trauma toward Enlin. In reality, it wasn't as if the teachers of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks weren't slacking off. A dozen or so teachers had transmitted their voices to Yuhua Vice Principal, informing him that Enlin was too powerful and that they should just award him a trophy for the number 1 spot on the Immortal Rankings board. Yuhua naturally refused with righteous words. What a joke! How could such an interesting free-for-all battle be cancelled because of something like this? How many years had it been since such an interesting free-for-all battle, the great demon, Enlin, began to fly toward the northern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks? Along the way, countless students let out anguished wails as their protective golden light was blasted away. Blood flowed everywhere he passed. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan looked at all of the adorable students whose dreams had been shattered by Enlin, and he couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. No one can be blamed for this. This is fate. Did Enlin's power give you nightmares, or did he give you hope? Perhaps in the distant future, some of the students will turn around and thank this demon who bestowed upon them nightmares. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan looked up into the sky with a pair of misty eyes that seemed to be able to see through time and see the future. As for records? That's impossible. I'll just give them all 0 points. Madagascar, the long-legged beauty in black silk, was writing furiously on the Book of Flight. Holy sh*t, Enlin, did you purposely come here to train my observation skills and hand speed? Even chopping vegetables wouldn't be as fast as you. Earth Immortal Ewing grumbled as she continued to record data. Recording more than 100 people at once was a very exciting task. The first time I saw you in the trial, I thought you were cheating. I didn't expect that. You're even more awesome now. You're going to cheat and soar to the sky. Enlin was still playing the role of a cheat that didn't need to be explained. He had already forgotten how many students he had defeated. In any case, he only used the lightning fall technique within a radius of 10 li, ignoring those who could withstand a single strike from him. Just like that, he forcefully pushed forward. Forest of 1,000 Peaks, Southwest Region. The top prodigy of the 5th-year cohort, Tang Shiman, was wandering around. He was in desperate need of battle to improve his result. His overall ranking on the Immortal Rankings board was determined by the sum of his combat capability and achievement point. The top dog of the previous cohort, Lu Qianhuan, was ranked 2nd on the Immortal Rankings board. The top dog of the previous cohort, Wang Xuanzhan, was ranked first on the Immortal Rankings board for 2 consecutive years. Even though Tang Ximen's position as the top dog had been taken away by Zhuo Qiubing, he was still ranked second in his cohort, right? This was the final competition before graduation, so it was still possible for him to make it into the top 5. Anlin, Su Xiaolan, Su Qianyun, and Zhuo Qiubing. These 4 were more or less the best. This was what Tang Ximen thought. This was all thanks to Xianyuan Qing going into seclusion to break through to the soul formation stage. Otherwise, his dream of making it into the top 5 would have been completely dashed. That's strange, why can't I find anyone? Tang Ximen thought to himself in bewilderment as he walked. He recalled encountering enemies in the free-for-all battles of the past. Why was it so empty now? There weren't even any sounds of battle. How am I supposed to display my power if I can't find anyone? I can't even earn any achievement points, let alone display my power. Tang Ximen was a little anxious, and he quickened his pace to search for anyone. An hour later, Tang Ximen fell into deep thought. Did I enter the wrong dungeon? He paused for a moment. Or the monsters haven't respawned yet? In the sky above, Earth Immortal Ji who grimaced. Little brat, you really didn't enter the wrong dungeon. It's not that the monsters haven't respawned, it's that Anlin has cleared all of them. Tang Ximen wandered around the southwestern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks with a perplexed expression. After another hour, he finally couldn't hold it in any longer and began to head north. There's something wrong with this place, but I refuse to believe that there's something wrong with the northern region as well. Tang Ximen used wind riding technique and flew toward the northern region with unquenchable battle intent still burning in his heart. Earth Immortal Ji, who looked at Tang Ximen's departing figure with a sympathetic expression. Silly child, you could have chosen any path, but you just had to choose that direction. Is this fate? In the northwestern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks, countless students experienced a nightmarish lightning strike. Anlin was like a god who wielded lightning in his hands, and bolts of lightning rained down wherever he went, crushing everything in his path. He even encountered a few powerful beings of the spirit-nurturing stage. All of them took a bolt of lightning from Anlin head-on before fleeing into the distance. Anlin didn't make things difficult for them. These seeded participants of the Immortal Rankings board should be allowed to shine for a while. Soon, the northwestern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks had been cleared. Anlin hummed a little tune as he advanced toward the northern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks. In the sky above, a soul formation stage Earth Immortal was increasing Anlin's stats with trembling hands. If these stats were to be exposed, everyone would definitely be blinded. Anlin, combat capability. 2,600, achievement points. 21560. More than 10,000 achievement points? This is a score that broke the record for the free-for-all battle of the university. And it's still increasing. Not only is he powerful, but his divine sense is also nature-defying. He's basically a hack in a trial like this. Once he unleashes his divine sense, all the students within a large area will be under his control. Not a single student will be able to escape. God of Slaughter. He's AF** King God of Slaughter. Cold sweat poured down the teacher's back. He realized that this was going to be a trial that was completely different from the free-for-all battles of the past. Not long after, an ordinary-looking man scurried around to search the area. A peculiar and perplexed expression appeared on his face. This isn't right. Why can't I find a single person here? This is way too abnormal. Am I dreaming? Tang Ximen became more and more panicked as he searched. The battle should have been in full swing, but he couldn't find a single person. This was definitely abnormal. Teacher, I have a question. Where are all the students? This isn't normal. Why is there no one here? Where are the 50,000 students scattered evenly across the Forest of 1,000 Peaks? Tang Ximen couldn't help but yell at the sky. However, there was no response. The teacher was also suffering in silence. Where were all the students? Of course they had all gone outside. Tang Shimin wore a resigned expression. I don't believe it. It's impossible that all the students have disappeared. He paused for a moment before flying toward the northern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks. The teacher looked at Tang Shimin's back with sympathy. Silly child, of all the directions he could have gone, he just had to go in that direction. Chapter 897. Tang Shimin felt like he had seen a ghost. He didn't see any other students along the way, and his surroundings were completely empty, to the point where it felt surreal. Did I really participate in the free-for-all battle trial? Tang Shimin's brows furrowed tightly as he flew on his sword. He felt like he had participated in a fake trial. On the White Stone Plaza, over 10,000 students had already begun to loudly protest. I strongly demand that the teachers turn on the crystal screen. That's right. We don't want to see anything else. We just want to see senior student Enlin's ugly face. I only want to see Godin. I only want to see him slaughter everyone. Please turn on the crystal screen. The students on the plaza were extremely vocal in their protest. In particular, the juniors who were participating in the free-for-all battle for the first time had entered the trial with high hopes and dreams in their hearts, only to be blasted out by Enlin's bolt of lightning. It was an extremely bad trial experience. Hence, they really wanted to see what this legendary figure was doing. The collective voices of over 10,000 students gave the teacher in charge of the crystal screen a lot of pressure. The teacher had no choice but to report this news to Vice Principal Yu Hua. However, to his surprise, the principal readily agreed to the request to turn on the crystal screen in advance. He also requested that all of the students who had been tortured be captured clearly. The teacher's lips twitched upon hearing this. Was this principal a bit of a freak? Thus, the crystal screen lit up at the request of over 10,000 students. They saw a figure in a flowing white robe. He looked very radiant and harmless, but many of the students were already gritting their teeth with rage. It was him. It was that demon king. Enlin quickly flew on his brick toward the northern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks with an expressionless face, as if he were a god looking down on the world. He snapped his fingers toward the sky. The crisp snap of his fingers was accompanied by over 100 bolts of extremely powerful lightning falling from the sky. Over 100 different images appeared on the crystal screen at once. The students there wailed with anguish. Some of them fled while others tried their best to defend themselves against the lightning. However, the lightning was far more terrifying than they had imagined. It tore through all obstacles and instantly charred them black. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. One student after another fell to the ground with their eyes rolled over into the back of their heads. The tens of thousands of students in the square, who were about to denounce Zhang Xian, saw this scene and forgot to speak. They couldn't help but tremble. They recalled the fear of being dominated by Enlin's thunderbolts. They really empathized with him. Enlin was like a demonic god. Wherever he went, he killed. The students were powerless against him. With a snap of his fingers, they fell to the ground. Terrifying, it's too terrifying. Senior Enlin, I was wrong about you. I didn't expect you to be such a cruel and merciless person. What? Godin, do you have the heart to treat your adorable fan like this? I'm allergic to snapping my fingers now. No one is allowed to snap their fingers in front of me. At this moment, an image suddenly appeared in front of them. Look, there's a person over there who hasn't been struck by the golden light barrier. A student exclaimed. Everyone turned their gazes to one of the images. There was a man whose body was slightly charred black. He quickly charged at Enlin, his sword slashing out a streak of white light, cutting Enlin in half. He won? To put it more accurately, he won against the projection created by Senior Enlin's consciousness. Enlin has left. Has that senior been acknowledged? I remember that senior is third-year Class 2's Chin Shin. He's a powerful being who made it onto the Immortal Rankings board last year. Everyone fell silent as they looked at the powerful being who was panting heavily with a confident smile on his face. That figure was so dazzling, yet so piercing to the eyes. They were complaining that Enlin was too cruel and merciless. They were complaining that Enlin hadn't even given them a chance to experience the trial before eliminating them. But had they ever thought about the source of all of this? It wasn't that Enlin was too cruel. It was that they were too weak. They were so weak that they couldn't even withstand the lightning summoned by Enlin with a snap of his fingers. What right did they have to complain? Some of the students had already understood and hung their heads in shame. So that's how it is. I understand God and's good intentions now. He's willing to incur countless insults in order to teach me a lesson. I understand now. A female student stared at the man on the crystal screen with tears in her eyes, unwilling to look away. A male student even hammered his fists into the ground. I'm so weak, yet I'm still blaming others. I'm not a man. Many of the students fell into deep thought. On the plaza, there were fewer and fewer words of criticism and discontent toward Enlin. Some of the students even tried to convince themselves that they were even more impressed by Enlin than before. They had transformed from casual fans to true fans. Batch after batch of students were eliminated. After sweeping through the northern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks, Enlin decided to head east first. As for the central region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks, he was naturally going to leave it for last. It was as if he had gone around in a circle before returning to the center. Tang Shimin was in complete despair as he followed behind Enlin. He had yet to encounter a single student, and he was beginning to doubt his life. What do I do? There's no one in the northern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks either. Should I head east or toward the center? Tang Shimin was in a daze. Logically speaking, there should be more people in the central region. However, this trial is far too bizarre, and I have to do the exact opposite of what I should do, so, a smile appeared on Tang Shimin's face as he looked toward the eastern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks. Heading east was the correct path. Enlin was still slaughtering his way through the crowd. He was invincible and unstoppable. More and more students gathered on the White Stone Plaza. In just over half a day, there had already been over 40,000 students. After sweeping through the northern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks, Enlin began to move toward the central region. Tang Shimin finally encountered his first enemy in the Forest of 1,000 Peaks. He was so moved that he was on the verge of tears, and he almost grabbed that student's hand and yelled, "Fellow countrymen!" However, that student seemed to have encountered something extremely terrifying, and he didn't even look at Tang Shimin before flying into the distance on his sword. Tang Shimin. Boom! Right at this moment, the enchantment barrier enshrouding the entire Forest of 1,000 Peaks began to shrink. The enchantment barrier that was supposed to shrink on the third day began to shrink on the first day. All of the students didn't know what to say anymore. My God! Senior student Enlin managed to make the enchantment barrier shrink 2 days in advance. Sigh. When can I become as outstanding as Godin? I don't have high expectations. I just want to be 1% as outstanding as Godin. I don't have high expectations either. I just want to be Enlin's girlfriend. Oi, the girl next door, you're asking too much. Can you stop dreaming? In the central region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks, stars and a bright moon hung high in the sky. Achoo! A female in a jade dress sneezed involuntarily. Enlin misses me? A faint smile appeared on her face as a few black figures appeared beside her. Come on, there's a surprise waiting for you here. Chapter 898. Enlin felt like it had been a long time since he had fought to his heart's content like this. No, it had been a long time since he had bullied his adorable classmates to his heart's content. The last time he had been this arrogant was when he rode on Dubai and became the dog and man duo. At that time, he rode on the mighty big white and swept through the world, mercilessly beating up the cute students. His stalwart figure was deeply imprinted in the minds of the students. Now that he had successfully cultivated a godly technique, he was on a killing spree in all directions. The number of students he had killed had already reached 20,000. This meant that over half of the students who had been eliminated had been killed by Enlin. He was like an invincible god of war as he advanced toward the central region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks. My adorable classmates, do you feel my power? Do you feel despair? Let's see if you still dare to call me Bastarden from now on. Enlin stood atop his black brick with a sinister smile on his face. Many of the students on the white stone plaza were already getting nervous. It's over. Enlin is going to kill the last batch of students. Is there no one else who can stop the Demon King? That's impossible. Senior student Enlin has already broken through to Soul Formation final stage. His cultivation base is the highest in the history of the university. Who can stop him? Unless it's her. That's right, there's still one more person who can stop him. Most of the students came to a realization and stared at the crystal screen with excitement. Some of them wore expressions of anticipation, while others wore expressions of curiosity. Enlin flew toward the center of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks atop his brick. This was usually the place where the Immortal Rankings Board powerful beings battled, but for some reason, it was unusually quiet now. The night breeze blew past, bringing with it a slight chill. Enlin furrowed his brows. He had unintentionally released his divine sense, but was unable to detect any student activity. No. There's someone. His expression became serious as he flew toward a certain direction. Soon, he saw a black-robed man sitting on the ground with his legs crossed. His aura was subdued, as if he were accumulating something. The man opened his eyes, and an indescribable sharpness appeared on his handsome face. Senior Enlin, I've been waiting for you for a long time. First year, Class 1, Zhu Xiaojie. Please enlighten me. Enlin snapped out of his daze. He was the leader of the freshmen, and it was said that he was a rare prodigy from the Great Tang imperial family in the Baihua prefecture. On the white jade square, many of the freshmen couldn't help but exclaim when they saw Zhu Xiaojie. Many of them even cheered him on. Clearly, he was very popular among the freshmen. I've finally met a decent opponent. I hope you won't disappoint me. Enlin chuckled as he walked towards Zhu Xiaojie. Zhu Xiaojie smiled faintly, raised his hands to the sky, and clenched the void. The sky was filled with twinkling stars, and the power of the stars converged to form a purple blade. With a dreamy luster, it slashed down at Enlin. Someone actually knows how to play with the power of stars. Interesting. Enlin's interest was piqued. He extended his finger and tapped the air. All the spectators let loose cries of surprise. Finger of the heavenly sun? Some students rolled their eyes. Godin, do you really need to use the finger of the heavenly sun against an opponent like this? Sure enough, Enlin's finger didn't unleash any power. It simply tapped the purple blade, and the blade was unable to advance any further. That's all you've got? A devilish smile appeared on Enlin's face. Then I'm really going to be disappointed. Zhu Xiaojie's aura suddenly soared explosively, and he stomped his foot onto the ground. Star Realm Illusionary Shadow. Boom. The purple blade suddenly exploded, transforming into a cloud of illusionary mist that enshrouded Enlin. In that instant, a hint of confusion appeared in Enlin's eyes. His heart jolted in shock. So Zhu Xiaojie's forte wasn't in using the power of stars to attack. Instead, he was using the power of stars to activate powerful illusionary formations. But you're not planning on using this illusionary formation to trap me, are you? Enlin chuckled lightly as a mocking expression appeared on his face. This type of illusionary formation could be used to trap spirit-nurturing stage cultivators, but trying to trap him? That was just wishful thinking. I don't need to trap you for a moment, Zhu Xiaojie replied indifferently. What did that mean? Enlin blinked in confusion. Right at this moment, two sword projections tore through the illusionary mist with extremely powerful might. The sword projections were so sharp that the ground over 1,000 feet in radius around them began to crack open, inky black trenches. The two sword projections, one black and one white, were like two enraged dragons in perfect coordination, sealing off all avenues of retreat for Enlin. Enlin's expression shifted in shock. "What's going on? Have you two gone insane?" He didn't dare to be careless, and he reached out to grab the two sword projections that were hurtling toward him from different directions. Clang! The sword projections collided with his palms, and a sharp screeching sound erupted. The chaotic sword intent instantly reduced the ground within a radius of over 100 meters to dust. Two figures began to appear. The male had a cold and aloof expression, while the green-robed woman was a beautiful and alluring woman. All the students on the White Jade Plaza let out cries of surprise when they saw the two of them. "It's third-year Yao Mingxi and Yao Xiao. My God! The two most powerful third-year cultivators are teaming up. Yao Xiao is of the spirit-nurturing intermediate stage, and Yao Mingxi has reached the spirit-nurturing final stage. Apparently, the two of them have a sword technique that can even defeat a soul formation stage cultivator if they combine their powers." The eyes of the third-year students were burning with passion as they stared at the two people on the crystal screen, as if they were the ones fighting. "Say, don't you guys think it's strange that they're teaming up? Strange my *SS. Enlin the Demon King won't be able to win if they don't team up." "That's right. I support teaming up. Come on, take down Enlin the Demon King." In the square, another wave of cheers and jeers arose. Teaming up was prohibited in the free-for-all battle, but the tens of thousands of students didn't oppose this kind of battle. Instead, they strongly supported it. Within the forest of 1,000 peaks, Enlin was displeased. He yelled toward the sky, "Teacher, I'm reporting you. Someone is disobeying the rules of the trial. What happened to the one-on-one battle?" Dioscoria Kankangensis, who was in charge of the central region of the forest of 1,000 peaks, chuckled but didn't say anything. Vice Principal Yuhua, who was in charge of the entire trial, had a thoughtful smile on his face. "Little guy, your strength is so amazing, so the rules of the free-for-all battle should naturally become more interesting." No teacher answered Enlin's question. The only thing that answered him was the sudden eruption of the ground. Boom! The ground beneath Enlin's feet exploded. The man who had been hiding with the earth-breathing technique for a long time finally appeared at the most crucial moment and threw a punch toward Enlin. The golden fist swept out for several hundred meters, and the powerful fist force even flattened the air. Enlin's hands were blocking Yao Mingxi and Yao Xiao's sword projections, so there was no way he could dodge this attack. Following a deafening boom, Enlin was hammered into the air. "It's classmate Hu Guan!" a student screamed. Following the appearance of the first-year and third-year gang leaders, the second-year gang leader has also appeared? An excited expression appeared on a student's face. Who's next? Some students were already looking forward to it. These prodigies who had joined forces to attack Enlin seemed to bear the hopes of their entire grade as they charged toward the path of defeating Demon King Enlin. Enlin could bully them as he pleased, and they were powerless to resist. However, the top prodigies of each grade would avenge them. Waves of cheers erupted in the plaza again, and the atmosphere reached a climax. Enlin, who was floating in the air, raised his head and looked toward the sky. He discovered that a woman with silky black hair had appeared from the clouds. She stood on a blue moon and held a lotus flower that contained a terrifying amount of moonlight energy in her hands. Excitement flashed through her dreamy blue eyes under the moonlight. She gently waved her hand, and the blue and white lotus flower pierced through the air before landing on Enlin's body. Immortal Wrath Fire Lotus, Explode. Chapter 899. The Immortal Wrath Fire Lotus was an inheritance that Su Qianyun had obtained from the Immortal Spirit Tower. As expected of a supremely talented cultivator, She was able to use her observation of the immortal wrath fire lotus to modify the essential power of the spell technique from the power of flames to the power of the moon, thereby creating a modified version of the immortal wrath fire lotus in order to unleash the full potential of her power. When the blue and white lotus flew through the air toward Anlin was finally struck by a sense of peril. The lotus instantly exploded. The boundless power of the moon was like a white halo that kept expanding, engulfing the surroundings and shattering everything in the void. The entire heaven and earth tremored violently as gale-force winds swept forth for a radius of 5 kilometers. At the very center of the explosion was the terrifying power of the moon, which was capable of corroding all things. The blue power was the power of frost, while the white power was the power of purification and slicing. The two different types of power crashed violently toward the man at the center of the explosion. All of the male cultivators on the plaza looked on with wide eyes as they stared at the man at the center of the explosion with nervous expressions. Goddess Sue is so powerful. I've never seen a soul formation stage cultivator unleash such a terrifying technique. Did you selectively forget about Godin? Will Demon King Anlin be able to summon his golden light barrier this time? You're overthinking things. Senior student Anlin's golden light barrier won't be able to be summoned so easily, but he should be able to sustain some damage from such a terrifying explosion. In the next instant, an inky black sword projection tore through the power of the moon. Anlin stepped out from the darkness, completely unscathed. He had donned an inky black cloak that obscured the stars and moon, and a terrifying aura instantly proliferated forth. Endless night sword technique. All of the prodigies present felt a sense of asphyxiation, and even the spectating students were struck by an indescribable sense of pressure, as if they were facing a true demon. Right at this moment, a cold light flashed through the air. Lightning revolved around the spear, and it roared like a dragon as it instantly tore through the power of darkness around Anlin before stabbing toward Anlin's heart. It's fifth-year senior Zhuoqiubing, a student exclaimed excitedly. Zhuoqiubing's spear technique is invincible, and he's practically invincible among the students of the same cohort. Even Senior Tang was defeated by him in a practical battle. Student Zhuoqiubing's performance reminds me of Wang Xuanzhan's glory. Zhuoqiubing had reached the half-step soul formation stage before Tang Shimen and became the leader of the fifth-year cohort, so he was also quite respected among the students. However, just as everyone was watching, Anlin didn't even take a second look before slashing his sword through the air. Scram! The pitch-black sword light seemed to be able to swallow the heavens and the earth, instantly turning the surroundings into a dark prison. The power of the lightning spear collided with the sword light, but it lasted less than a second before it was broken, and its body was sent tumbling backwards. Arg! Zhuoqiubing let loose a wail of anguish as his body was engulfed by the black sword projection. A beam of golden light enveloped his body. All of the students stared blankly at the protective golden light on the screen, and all of their cheers came to an abrupt halt. The leader of the fifth-year cohort, the half-step soul formation stage Zhuoqiubing, had been insta-killed. However, in the instant that Anlin's attack fell, a white holy flame tore through the endless night sword technique's barrier of light. White flaming wings spread open, making the woman in the jade dress appear as if she were a holy maiden from the heavens. The exquisitely beautiful woman wielded her dragon sparrow sword, and the terrifying sword might emanating from her body threatened to crush the entire sky. At this moment, all of the shock from Zhuoqiubing's insta-kill was completely forgotten. All of the tens of thousands of students stared up at the exquisitely beautiful and extremely powerful woman in the sky with scorching light in their eyes. She was the second legendary figure of the university, the one who had the best chance of defeating Anlin, Su Xiaolan. She was the warrior who had the best chance of defeating the Demon King. Vermilion bird, God-slaying strike! A clear voice sounded in the sky. She wielded her dragon sparrow sword, which erupted with flames that lit up the night sky as she slashed down toward Enlin without any hesitation. It was as if the vermilion bird had fallen to the earth and instantly engulfed Enlin. A massive fissure of several kilometers in length appeared on the ground from the terrifying scorching temperatures emanating from the sword projection. Several small mountains were also melted into nothingness before disappearing from heaven and earth. All of the spectating students' eyes widened, and their bodies trembled uncontrollably. They had clearly been given a fright by Su Xiaolan's sword strike. Was this a F***king attack that a soul formation stage cultivator could unleash? They're both students of the Celestial Court, but why is Goddess Xiaolan so exceptional? What I'm more concerned about is, senior student Enlin wouldn't have been killed, would he? I don't know. Did senior student cheat on her? Is that why senior student's sister is going to do it herself? Godin is going to be fine. He's bastard and his defensive prowess is very high. All of the students discussed spiritedly among themselves, and some of them were even sweating profusely from nervousness. Spectating a battle of this caliber was even more exciting than participating in the battle themselves. Within the sea of holy flames, the air within a radius of over a kilometer was twisted and warped like a dream. Su Xiaolan descended from the sky and made her way toward a certain direction. All of the flames danced around her like fairies. In the sky above, Su Qianyun materialized another ball of immortal wrath flames in her palatial dress and was ready to unleash it. Yao Mingxi and Yao Xiu wielded their swords with one hand and continued to accumulate sword intent. Zhu Xiaojie's body twisted and distorted before gradually disappearing. At this moment there was only one target, and all of it was aimed at one person. Enlin, stop playing dead. If you're going to fight, then let's fight. Su Xiaolan's voice was as clear as a spring, and it pierced through the sea of flames before landing on a certain spot on the melted earth. Boom! The black aura took the form of a spiral, instantly dispersing the surrounding holy flames, revealing the man's slightly battered figure. His clothes were in tatters, and his hair was slightly curled up, but there was still a faint smile on his face. Xiaolan, it's not a good idea for you to unleash your most powerful attack right from the get-go. A vibrant smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face as dimples appeared on her face. How do you know it's a powerful attack? It's just a small spell technique. Enlin's eyelids twitched. I'm sorry, but I must be the champion of the Immortal Rankings Board. I must stand until the end of this battle. Su Xiaolan's eyes flashed with a piercing light, and she held her sword horizontally in front of her as battle intent surged. That's great. I've always been looking forward to your determination. Otherwise, this battle would be meaningless. The two of them faced off against each other as their auras soared into the clouds. What terrifying power! Yao Xiu let loose a delicate cry as her entire body trembled. Yao Mingxi stared at Enlin with a scorching light in his eyes. This is the man we should be chasing after. What a mighty figure! Even further away, a white-robed figure poked his head out and trembled uncontrollably at the sight of the battle taking place in the distance. It's one thing for there to be so few students, but why are there so many powerful beings attacking Enlin together? Wait, this is against the rules. But the teachers aren't stopping them. Strange, all of this is too strange. This figure was none other than Tang Shimen, who had rushed all the way to the central region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks. He looked up into the sky with a disconsolate expression. As expected, I'm participating in a fake trial. Chapter 900. Su Xiaolan and Enlin, the two fated opponents, finally met. Another wave of excitement erupted on the plaza as tens of thousands of students began to discuss fervently. My God, I'm so excited. Are Enlin and Su Xiaolan finally going to fight? I've been waiting for this for a long time. Can Su Xiaolan really defeat Enlin? Although I also want to see Demon King Enlin lose, I have to admit that Enlin is the most powerful person in the university. Enlin dares to win? The spectators discussed fervently among themselves as they watched the climax of the drama unfold. Within the forest of 1,000 peaks, all the prodigies were extremely tense. Holy flames erupted from Su Xiaolan's body once again, materializing into the form of a vermilion bird that enveloped her body. At the same time, her eyes turned golden as a terrifying dragon's might radiated outward. It was also at this moment that a hazy starlight suddenly descended and enveloped Enlin's body. Bam bam bam! Several chains of water pierced through the starlight and shot toward Enlin. They were extremely fast and as agile as flying snakes. Su Xiaolan knew that Enlin could control lightning, so she didn't use lightning chains. Enlin was enveloped by the starlight, and a dazed look appeared in his eyes for an instant. However, he quickly came to his senses. White streams of wind revolved around his longsword, and wings of wind spread out behind him. His speed instantly increased by several times, and he barely evaded the chains before charging toward a certain direction. Don't think that I won't be able to detect you just because you're hiding in the shadows. A snow-white light flashed past Enlin's eyes as he activated his divine inspection technique, and a sword projection stabbed toward a certain direction. The sword projection was imbued with extreme sharpness, and ripples appeared in the air as a bloody mist exploded. Zhu Xiaoji's chest was punctured, and he threw up a large mouthful of blood. A golden protective barrier also appeared in that instant, blocking Enlin's sword projection. The leader of the freshmen was also instantly killed by the great demon king. At this time, Su Xiaolan's water chain rushed to Enlin's front and wrapped around his body. 4 divine flames erupted from Enlin's body, and the high temperature melted the chains of water around him. I was waiting for you to use this move. The corners of Su Xiaolan's lips curled up, and the holy flame vermilion bird around her suddenly let loose a clear cry, as if it was issuing a command to all flames in the world. The 4 divine flames Enlin had unleashed suddenly exploded, as if they were no longer under his control. Rumble! 4 colored flames exploded, engulfing the earth within a radius of 1,000 meters. The god fire was still wreaking havoc. In the sky above, Su Qianyun threw down her immortal wrath fire lotus. Su Xiaolan made a hand seal, and the white flaming vermilion bird on her body rushed towards Enlin. The immortal fury fire lotus exploded, and so did the holy flame vermilion bird. Heaven and earth trembled, and the flames transformed into shock waves that extended for close to 10 kilometers. A massive mushroom cloud rose into the sky, exuding boundless light and heat. The terrifying energy even caused the enchantment barrier in the sky to tremor and crack slightly. Tang Shimen, who was spectating from afar, was also knocked to the ground by the shockwave. Hu Guan, who had unleashed his earth-breathing technique and was hiding underground in preparation for a sneak attack, was also blasted into the ground by the terrifying explosion, and even his protective golden light was revealed. The leader of the second-year team, Hu Guan, was eliminated. On the White Jade Plaza, all of the second-year students wore awkward expressions upon seeing Hu Guan's abrupt exit, and some of them even covered their faces in speechlessness. How humiliating! It was one thing for their leader to be defeated in a fair and square battle, but who would have thought that he would be eliminated for no apparent reason? Speaking of which, even student Hu Guan, who was hiding underground, was eliminated. Enlin is probably going to be unable to withstand such a terrifying attack, right? A student suddenly speculated. This was the same thought in many of the students' minds. After all, the visual impact of the explosion was simply too overwhelming. They really couldn't think of any power that could withstand such an attack. The flames gradually dissipated. A gargantuan crater appeared before everyone's eyes. All of the students' eyes widened as they saw a man with tattered clothes, but he was still standing with his sword in his hand. The man's eyes were bright and piercing, and even though there were a few charred marks on his body, the wounds were healing at a rate discernible to the naked eye due to his extremely powerful regenerative ability. He healed just like that? Some of the students' eyes widened with incredulity. as expected of Godin, he's still completely unscathed even after enduring such a terrifying attack. Is this the power of Senior Enlin? He really does live up to his reputation, he's so handsome. So what if I'm struck by his lightning? I don't care even if he tortures me 1,000 times over. I want to join the support team. Some of the female students who had just entered the university were completely entranced, and a scorching light appeared in their eyes as they stared at the confident man. You're betraying our defeat the Demon King Revolutionary Camp just like that? Some of the male students were grief-stricken. Su Xiaolan's long eyelashes trembled slightly at the sight of Enlin's expression, as if she was a little surprised. However, a smile then appeared on her face as her battle intent surged even more violently, and she charged toward Enlin again. Yao Mingxi and Yao Xiu stood off to the side, unleashing one long-range sword projection after another to harass her. Enlin stomped a foot onto the ground, and heaven and earth suddenly dimmed. Su Xiaolan's heart jolted with shock, and she immediately unleashed her holy flame to protect herself, upon which she heard the blood-curdling cries of Yao Mingxi and Yao Xiu. When the light returned to heaven and earth, the two siblings had already collapsed to the ground with severe injuries, and a golden protective light had been unleashed from their bodies. Yao Mingxi and Yao Xiu had been eliminated. Enlin's evil-slaying sword was stained with blood, but his eyes were fixed on the woman in the blue palatial dress in the sky. Su Qianyun's body trembled slightly, and she had clearly been intimidated by Enlin's domineering aura. Enlin really did want to kill Su Qianyun first, but Su Xiaolan wasn't going to let him have his way. She swept her holy flame toward Enlin, and each and every one of her sword strikes was imbued with extremely fearsome power. This wasn't the first time that Enlin had sparred with Su Xiaolan, but this was the first time that he had been so serious about it. He didn't dare to get complacent, and he immediately unleashed his endless night sword technique. Devastating sword strikes clashed relentlessly with the holy flame slashes, transforming the ground within a radius of several kilometers into a terrifying realm of death. Gale-force winds wreaked havoc as the earth melted and cracked, and the shock waves from their attacks were powerful enough to raise a mountain to the ground. All of the students stared intently at the screen with wide eyes, and they were so nervous that they didn't even blink. Holy Mother of God, is this really a battle between soul formation stage cultivators? Even through the screen, I can feel the terrifying power radiating from their battle. My uncle is a new return to void stage mighty figure, so even his attacks aren't as powerful as theirs. Dioscoria Kankangensis, who was responsible for recording the final area, grimaced. Principal, our trial venue, the Forest of 1,000 Peaks, is about to be completely destroyed by them? Is this really okay? Vice Principal Yu Hua took a deep breath and gritted his teeth. It's okay. It wasn't actually okay. His heart was still throbbing with pain. However, this was a trial venue, and he couldn't just stop the students from fighting, could he? They were the #1 university in the Kingdom of the 9 States, but they didn't even have a trial venue for their students to fight to their heart's content. Wouldn't they become the laughingstock of the entire Tai Chu continent? Thus, the battle between Enlin and Su Xiaolan continued as tens of thousands of students watched nervously. Never would they have thought that the free-for-all battle would become a one-man show between Enlin and Su Xiaolan. This was way too King exciting. Chapter 901. A daybreak sword sliced through the darkness and became the only color between heaven and earth. Who won? Enlin's hands were trembling as self-blame welled up in his heart. Enlin rolled his eyes. I have such a high IQ. How could I be an idiot? What a joke. Be careful, Xiaolan. Enlin wielded his sword with one hand, and golden void lightning, which was imbued with the power of annihilation, revolved around the blade of his sword. The space around him seemed to be unable to withstand the devastating power, and began to crack open. On the main battlefield, Su Xiaolan was struck by Enlin's daybreak slash, and a bloody gash appeared on her body. Crimson stains spread all over her black dress, but she was still standing. Su Xiaolan finally burst into laughter at the sight of Enlin's renewed fighting spirit. If you don't take this seriously, you'll have to kneel on a lava durian when we get back. The tens of thousands of students on the white stone plaza were no longer able to remain calm. Again, Su Xiaolan unleashed her true dragon and vermilion bird. Her dragon body was her armor, and her holy flames were her swords. She stood atop the vermilion bird and rose into the air, as if she were a proud holy maiden. Be careful too. Su Xiaolan pursed her lips. Enlin, have you forgotten? You told me that I have to take this trial seriously and not be like before. Do you think I'll feel good just because you gave up? Almost all of the students stared intently at the screen, witnessing the most intense battle in the history of Xiaoxian United University. Dioscorea Cancongensis, who was responsible for recording the battle prowess, was sweating profusely. The combat prowess of these two students was off the charts. How was he supposed to evaluate them? Enlin hovered his evil-slaying sword in front of him, and his black cape transformed into 99 black vortexes, which radiated a black light that seemed to be able to engulf all things. Principal, since there are only a few students left, why don't we remove the barrier? A teacher couldn't hold on any longer and shouted for help. Boom! Enlin's legs gave out from under him, and he became even more serious. The teachers maintaining the barrier were starting to feel like they couldn't hold on much longer. Su Qianyun, on the other hand, thought that she had found an opportunity and threw an Immortal's Fury Fire Lotus at Enlin. Golden lightning soared into the sky, illuminating the night sky. Su Xiaolan. Combat points 2,950, achievement points 3, 580. Enlin didn't dodge or evade and directly took a big move. The flames gradually dissipated, and so did the lightning. A figure gradually appeared in the vision of the student. Senior Su Xiaolan is an accomplice this time. Speaking of which, weren't these two ridiculously strong? My heart aches for my teacher who was blown away. Damn it, calling him the Great Demon King wasn't wrong. His achievement points were about to break the school record by more than 10 times. How many cute students had he slaughtered? Thankfully, Principal Yuhua was around to give him a rough estimate. Otherwise, Dioscorea Cancongensis really would be a goner. Enlin finally recalled the teary eyes of Su Xiaolan during the free-for-all battle. Was he going to make Su Xiaolan cry again? The tip of the sword crashed into Enlin's chest, upon which a scintillating light erupted forth. Boom! Indeed, he didn't want to hurt Su Xiaolan. Could Su Xiaolan just stand by and watch him get pummeled until he was eliminated? The holy flame slash exploded, and the destructive energy spread out, razing the nearby mountains to the ground. PFFF PFFF PFFF. God and his F** king up again. Last time, he destroyed the enchantment barrier around the Immortal Spirit Tower, and this time, he's even destroying the enchantment barrier around the Forest of 1,000 Peaks. Enlin. Combat points 3,100, achievement points 85410. Did he try to take them down with him? Several teachers were blasted flying by the backlash of the enchantment barrier as they threw up mouthfuls of blood. Enlin's heart throbbed with pain at the sight of the wounded Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan, their enchantment barrier had absorbed almost all of the energy that had escaped, which was why it was in such a sorry state. Su Xiaolan raised her head, and a smug smile appeared on her face as her golden eyes met Enlin's. She raised her aura to its peak, and her dragon sparrow sword tore through the final barrier before stabbing toward Enlin's chest. Vice Principal Yuhua clasped his hands behind his back. Hold on for a bit longer. You're all teachers of the United University of Cultivation, but you can't even withstand the shockwaves from a student's attack? Don't worry, they're almost at the end of the battle. What the hell did he do? How did he really wound Su Xiaolan? F***CK. They were responsible for restricting the range of battle for the normal students, not the range of battle for these two supremely talented prodigies. Endless Night Dawn. A faint smile appeared on Yuhua's face upon seeing this. Remove the enchantment barrier? What a joke! If they removed the enchantment barrier, the entire forest of 1,000 peaks would be torn down by those two. How would they be able to hold the free-for-all battle next year? Dioscorea Kankangensis fell silent as he stared at Enlin's achievement score. A sense of extreme peril welled up in Enlin's heart, and a piercing pain shot through his heart. Enlin felt extremely depressed. If Su Xiaolan knew that she was trying to turn him into a eunuch for 100 years, what would her reaction be? Another massive crater appeared on the ground, within which lay a man who had lost all hope in life. The two of them unleashed their final techniques at the same time. The immortal wrath fire lotus exploded. Within the trial ground, energy surged violently, and terrifying shock waves sent the earth flying before crashing into the blue enchantment barrier, causing it to tremor violently. Su Xiaolan raised her sword to her eyebrows, and her sword intent abruptly increased. Again. In that instant, the only things that remained between heaven and earth were boundless holy flames and piercing lightning. Enlin steeled his heart, and he flipped his evil-slaying sword through the air. The black robe around the blade of the sword exploded, and a white light soared into the sky, illuminating the night as if it were day. Su Qianyun was a little dumbstruck as she looked down at the lifeless man at the bottom of the crater. Has classmate Enlin become an idiot? Su Xiaolan faltered slightly at the sight of Enlin's devoid of battle intent. Crack! A crack appeared on the blue enchantment barrier before shattering. Su Xiaolan and Enlin were still battling, and the battle was becoming more and more intense as time went on. They had already reached the point where they were both unleashing their most powerful attack. Yuhua was also given a fright upon seeing this, and he immediately stabilized the space within a radius of several dozen kilometers while keeping the energy of the explosion at bay. Enlin took a deep breath before standing up again, and his aura soared explosively as his sword intent soared into the heavens. Sorry for the offense, Xiaolan. Enlin's defenses were broken through layer by layer, and just as the holy flames were about to dissipate, the dragon sparrow sword flashed through the air, and the power of the vermilion bird and true dragon combined to elevate its sharpness to the extreme. He quickly retreated, and Su Xiaolan's sword chased after him relentlessly. The teachers were all a little ashamed upon hearing this, and they worked even harder to maintain the enchantment barrier. The teachers who were maintaining the spell formation were struck by backlash from the power of the enchantment barrier, and blood trickled down the corners of their mouths. Su Xiaolan conjured her true dragon in this dire situation, and she was then engulfed by the light of the sword's strike. Boom! White sword intent pulverized the earth before crashing into the enchantment barrier. Within the forest of 1,000 peaks, the enchantment barrier had already completely shrunk. Vermilion bird god slaying sword. A boundless light erupted from Su Xiaolan's dragon sparrow sword, and a holy flame projection extended for several kilometers before crashing down upon Enlin. Boom! An earth-shattering collision erupted, and the space around them began to crumble. Terrifying energy proliferated outward like a ball, crashing violently into the enchantment barrier.